Welcome to a special mailbag episode of the It's a Mimic podcast, where I, Adam, am sitting down with one of our Patreon subscribers, Andri, who has generously become one of our metallic Great Worm tier patrons. And that means that he's able to sit down and record an episode with us. And he decided that today we're going to be adding names and NPCs to a small town. This is actually a sequel to the episode we recorded about building a town, where we chose all the noteworthy landmarks and organizations in and around the town. If you haven't heard that one yet, go back and listen to that one first, because we're not going to sit down and explain it all again. We've got a lot to cover in this episode. But before we jump right into it, Andre, I've got a couple of questions that I'm always curious about. I always want to ask everybody. And it helps me get to know people a little bit better. So,
Okay.
Do you watch a lot of movies?
I watch I would believe a surprising amount of movies, at least compared to a lot of my friends,
Uh,
because I was that kid that just went. I was outside a lot. Don't get me wrong, but when I wasn't outside, I was inside watching movies.
I was very much the same way. Like growing up, I don't think that I watched a whole lot of movies till I was about 10 or 11. But once I started, it was just an avalanche. So, in your
Oh yeah.
opinion, what's the best movie ever made?
See, I saw this in the breakdown, and my immediate thought went into Fellowship of the Ring.
Okay. It's not a bad answer. I mean, won a bunch of Academy Awards, and it's usually in like the top 10 best movies ever lists.
Yeah.
I'd probably keep it in the top 20, but that's because I can
Uh,
see the car in the background. So,
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time as well, I think some of the more recent movies, 1917, for example, is a fantastic movie
holy shit, wasn't
as
it?
well.
And the
The
sound in
camera
that.
work, the sound, absolutely. All Quiet on the Western Front was also fantastic, in my opinion.
Do you like
Like,
particularly like war movies?
I'm such. It's probably just the hyper focus of both my ADHD and autism combined. That's a recent diagnosis, by the way. Fun for me.
Yay.
It's just I do enjoy the history behind what led up to these circumstances, and I mean there are some war movies that are absolute garbage. Don't get me wrong, but
Mhm.
but the ones that are like 1917 and All Quiet on the Western Front, the camera work, the sound, the just everything. It is so good. But just because I was raised on Lord of the Rings, I have to go with Fellowship of the Ring. Is the best movie in my opinion.
Fair enough. Fair enough. What's your favorite movie though? And
Oh,
why?
Revenge of the Sith. Revenge of the Sith.
Oh yeah?
Oh yeah, I would never call it the best movie ever made, but it is just I grew up with it. I am that generation that grew up the prequels, whereas the previous generation grew up with the originals. So for me,
I grew up with the originals. When
yeah.
I fall out of love with Star Wars after episode 2, I was just done. Revenge of the Sith came out. I saw it in theaters, and I admitted it was a great movie, but I've only seen it twice since it was released,
I
compared
mean,
to
and
the
that's
dozens of
totally,
times for the
yeah,
originals. So
of course. I mean, I watched every single movie dozens of times, but the prequels are my original, so I watch those a lot more.
it's funny what movies you grow up with. You know, I just watched The Princess Bride for the first time, and
Oh yeah,
everyone's always surprised by that. Like within the last month,
I just haven't seen Princess Bride, but I quote from it all the time.
it's very memeable, but
Uh-huh.
it is very much a fairy tale, which is neat. It's fun. I really enjoyed it. I'm sure it would have impacted me a whole lot more had I seen it when I was like 12, right?
Yeah.
What's one guilty pleasure movie, and why do you like it?
The Room with Tommy Wiseau.
All right. Okay.
It is just fantastically shit.
I know a lot of people that love it. I know a lot of people that like the it's so bad it's good, like Sharknado,
Yeah, I'm
right?
I'm I'm one of those. It's so bad, it's good. It is just yeah, it is just such a shit movie.
What was the last movie to piss you off then, or to disappoint you? And what do you need to get off your chest about it?
The Rise of Skywalker.
All right, okay, rant open. Here we go.
I just don't get how they can just pull the Palpatine somehow returned and expect it to work. Like I just what he It's just I get it. Star Wars is a space fantasy, and nothing makes sense. It just works. It works. It works. Whatever. Just out of nowhere, Palpatine somehow returned.
I look, I can't tell you the fact that they did it in the opening crawl just pisses me right off. As much as the prequels made me fall out of love with Star Wars, the sequel trilogy put the final nail in the coffin for me.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I get it. And I completely understand that. The sequel trilogy almost did that, but I also grew up watching the Clone Wars. So, and the Clone Wars holds a special place in my heart, so I can't fall out of love with Star Wars.
Everyone I know says the Clone Wars not only redeems but enhances the prequel trilogy, and so it makes the whole story much, much, much better.
I wholeheartedly agree with that statement.
I wonder if that is what they were trying to do with the sequel trilogy, with through comic books and video games and TV shows and everything else to try to get us to the point of loving these characters, and it just didn't work. There was no oversight, there was no through thought. It was just completely mishandled from the ground up. But here we are.
Oh, and then oh my god, the ending of Rise of Skywalker. Oh my god, look, there's this huge debate: is Rey a Skywalker or not? She's just not. I love the concept for the character. Don't get me wrong. If the writing would have been better, this would have been a fantastic sequel trilogy. I am convinced of it. But you can't just shove something. You can't just make the big reveal that she's the granddaughter of Palpatine. How did that happen, by the way? Like, where the fuck did that come from?
Can you picture him as a senator just getting his freak
on? No. This guy was too busy taking over the Republic. There's no way.
Also, the timeline doesn't work out with how old she is versus how much Luke has aged.
Yeah, it
like he would have had to conceive a it doesn't work. Where are the parents? What is that story? You know what? I don't care. I just don't care anymore.
And then there's that fucking dagger that perfectly lines up with the fucking remnants of the Death Star, which exploded completely at the moon of Endor, by the way.
It's getting to the point where I can hear you thumping on your desk about it, and I'm quite So one of the things that I thought Star Wars did particularly poorly, I'm going to segue into the episode now, did incredibly poorly is the naming conventions.
Yeah.
Yep, I think that a lot of the shit in it makes absolutely zero sense if you sit down and pay attention. The names themselves are often just silly. The only name I think that actually got any real thought put into it whatsoever was Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Because it's just because it's vaguely reminiscent of the word father, like right off the bat.
I think in Legends it's pretty okay personally, and because there's one called Darth. It's only the Sith that there's any thought it put into it. By the way,
yeah.
Like there's Darth Nihilius, which nihilism, which is just nothingness.
Yeah,
because he is nothing, and then Darth Tyrannus because he's a tyrant. Darth Sidious because he is.
Yeah, and these are great like villain names, and villain names can be a little bit cheesy and on the nose, and you can get away with it.
Of course,
right? But your space fantasy named after Skywalker, and your lone wolf goes by Solo. There's just a lot of bullshit that's happening there. Do you
want to know a fun fact about, because in Iceland we used to translate everything.
Yeah.
Chewbacca's name in Icelandic is the funniest thing I've heard ever, because if I would translate it back into English, it would just be Harry. He would not the name Harry. He would be Harry.
You might as well, right? Like it's on the nose. There it is.
Yeah, exactly.
So when we're going to talk about naming stuff a lot today, and I've got some thoughts, but I'll tell you this right now. We're
Mhm.
going to have to do it essentially in English because that's the only touchstone that I have.
Of
But the
course.
general rules will apply for whatever language. So I'm going to speak kind of broadly about the idea behind it, and then hone
Yep.
in on English examples. When you play D&D, what language do you play it in?
I because I'm currently soon enough going to be playing in 3 campaigns.
Hmm.
In 2 of them, I play exclusively in English, and then when we get into arguments, it is in Icelandic.
Wild.
Uh, and then, well, Icelandic is just way more of an aggressive language. You get your point across way easier. In the third one, it is a big mix because the module we're running is in English, so the DM reads a lot of the stuff in English, and then we just kind of switch between. It switches very smoothly in between Icelandic and English.
Do you
But
guys ever have translation issues with puzzles and descriptions and any of that stuff?
yes,
Yeah.
one translation issue was chandelier. I
Mm.
I can picture. I know what a chandelier is. It took me 5 minutes to remember the name in English. No, in Icelandic. Sorry, and a chalice. Like these like extremely regal, noble words for basic bitch functioning things in reality.
Like
Uh,
when they talk about a bronzed brazier and you're sitting there trying to figure out what the fuck they're talking about. It's just a big
it's
flat bowl, right? Like,
it's yeah, and I mean you would put braziers you put fire in. That's just a fireplace. We translate it to fireplace. It is
yeah.
a bronze fireplace. There you go.
Fair enough. So these are things to keep in mind if you're going to be playing in your campaign. You obviously have to know what language that you're dealing with. And for most people, that language is they're going to think, oh, it's English. But one of the things that I have learned DMing for new players, and a lot of my players are relatively new to the scene, or they were compared to me, right? So
Yeah.
when I started playing the campaign that I'm in now, I only had one player that actually played D&D for longer than 6 months by the time that I took over that
Oh wow.
campaign.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And so he understood a lot of the terms, like the difference between a shield and a buckler, but I had to stop and explain it to others. So understanding not just the language or the dialect, but also the level of linguistics that your players may have. Now, I had Casey
Yeah.
at that table, and she read Lord of the Rings. So
Oh yeah.
she had a lot and like she's a huge Lord of the Rings nerd, and she absolutely loves reading like medieval fantasy stuff. So she had a lot of touchstone words I didn't have to explain
Yeah.
to her, but I still find myself having to explain to Charlie or Megan, who they don't deal with European medieval fantasy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's something to keep in mind, and it also allows you, when you think about this more flowery language with all of the flourish and whatnot, you get to use these in unique and interesting ways if you just drop it as a description of something that's in the room, like chandelier, for example. If some people don't know what that is, candelabra actually was one of the ones that popped up that I had to stop and explain about a year ago. I could see you thinking.
Yeah. I'm really trying here because I've heard the name. I've heard it before.
A
I can't.
candelabra is, think about a metal candlestick that has multiple arms
Yeah.
off of it.
Yeah. 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 Okay. That's what I had in mind, but I wasn't sure. Okay. 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 See, I'm always learning, especially when English
Yeah,
isn't your first language.
hey man, the moment you stop learning is the moment you start dying. So the
That's a morbid way to think about it, but I suppose it's true.
the word candelabra was something that I had to stop and explain to a couple of my players, and I was surprised by that. But it also allows me to, like, if they're walking through the room and I mention there's a candelabra, they'll go, "Wait, what is that?" But if I
Yeah.
say that this is the bridge, the candelabra bridge, that they won't question that. Even if
Yeah.
there's meaning behind it, there was a reason, or at every support, there's a large, lantern that's magically lit and it looks like a candelabra from the distance or whatever. They may not get that, what the reference is, but the candelabra bridge sounds so good. Right.
Yeah.
So when we start naming things, thinking about this language that people may not necessarily have a touchstone for, it adds almost a little puzzle to it where they will come years later and go, "Oh, I fucking get that now."
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So One of the first things I want to talk about before we get into naming things, because people are going to assume we're going to start with well, people, and we are not. We're going to start with the geography. What do we have on the map? And
Yeah.
we came up with a list of different stuff because we didn't just build a city. We built the surrounding area of the city, and then we built what's inside the city, and then we built a handful of organizations. These are all things that you can find on a map. You're going to find regions and territories. You're going to find geographical locations. You're going to find cities and towns and empires and borders and rivers and oceans, and then you can get into a city map and you're going to find where the shops are and where the landmarks are, right? So let's start to go through it a little bit. When I started to think about naming geographical locations, I come up with a short list, and it's not comprehensive, but it's a really good place to start. Okay. The first one is like using a description or a feature of the location. For example, the old tower, and everyone
Yeah.
just going to call it Old Tower, right? We get shit like that all the way through. Game of Thrones is great for naming shit because it's like
Oh yeah.
High Garden. It's literally because it is above sea level and is a big garden, but it's
Yep.
such a good name, right? So Casterly Rock is another one. Like
Yeah,
these,
I was just about to say Castle Rock. It's a castle on a big rock.
yeah, like, and it's, but they're such good evocative names, and so using description, and we get that all the time. We have like the Yellow River, right, or the Rocky Mountains is what like
That's
right
that's
where I
yeah,
live.
that's
So
that's a fantastic one. Yeah.
sometimes it's a metaphor that we use for a naming convention as well, and we get that right in the Forgotten Realms with like the Sword Coast, right, because it's got this long jagged edge to it. If we don't like a direct description, we can say, okay, well, what does it look like? And
Yeah.
we
I
use
have
that
a
a lot
fantastic
in
one for
medieval
this
fantasy
actually.
when we're talking about directions, like, hey, there's going to be the Leonin Rock, and when you walk up to it, or you can see it in the horizon, it looks like a giant lion head, right?
Yeah,
So,
in Iceland we use a lot of this.
yeah.
There isn't an official. I don't. This is the thing. I don't know the official name for this mountain. I genuinely don't. I lived next to this mountain for years. Don't know the official name. We call it the Batman Mountain because it has like a Batman type shape to it.
Neat.
And then there's the Elephant Rock because it looks like there's an elephant in the rock. And then there is
We've got two mountains, or it's one mountain that has two peaks on it, but it looks like two mountain lions, and so everyone knows it as
Mhm.
the Lions, and it's given us Lions Bay. I One of my favorite pubs is Lions Pub. We cross the
That's
Lionsgate
neat.
Bridge. Everything is
That's
about
neat.
the lions in that part of Vancouver. So
And then I think my favorite one. It sadly doesn't look like it now because of global warming, but a glacier that we had. Well, it's also a receding glacier. Like it's just a natural movement of glaciers as well. To be fair,
mhm.
global warming didn't help, but not to touch too much on that. It used to be called. I'll say it in Icelandic, then I'll translate it to you. Uh, Brókarjökull. That translates to underwear glacier. I'll let you guess why we named it that.
Please tell me it was the shape of and not the color of.
It was the shape, yes, not the
Yeah, okay.
color.
So using metaphor to name things is a great way to have flowery and interesting names when you're dealing with anything that you can find on a map. If that doesn't work for you, you can move over to kind of describing the function of it. And we get this a lot when we come to cities specifically. Things like Main Street
Yeah,
our First Avenue, right? There are a lot of things that when we name, especially things that are based around travel, we will talk about the function of it, right?
exactly.
So there are events, there are things that are named after historical events that have happened. This is going to be particularly useful in medieval fantasy if a celestial touchdown and blessed the area, then they may call it, angel touch or something, right? So
Yeah,
there will be things that happened in the past where there were battles or someone was killed or someone was born here, or like there will be words to describe this area, and that's going to have a name that's going to be attached to the area, and it often will start off as a nickname and then grow to become the official name over time.
Yeah, I mean that's what happened with the Batman Mountain. I have no idea what the official name of the mountain is.
The next thing, of course, is if we're going to talk about events, we should talk about people and organizations as well. Sometimes it's just named after people. I live in Vancouver. It was named after George Vancouver, right? Like that's
Wow, well, I didn't know that of you.
sure. And like, and what? Why would you, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. I know Washington D.C. is named after what Washington, the
George
first
Washington, yeah.
George. Yeah,
Like
I
so,
know that.
so name your city after a George, I guess is the point. So, but like even organizations as well, where you're gonna have if there's a long-standing organization that's being seen over by like the landscape is seen over by the monks of the area, or if we're naming things on a map, we're going to know that this temple is run by these clerics, and so this
Yeah,
order of clerics, so we're going to call it based on that order, right? So sometimes we get the name being a warning, right? Like the Bloody
yeah.
Foothills, right? Or the Dead Man's Pass and shit like that,
Oh
right?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Where if it is particularly nasty, the locals will give it a name and then that will end up on a map. Many names shift and change over time, and bastardizations are common, especially if it was originally named in one language and then another people came in
Yeah,
and fucked that language up.
yeah. That I'm not going to go there, but yeah, that sounds about right.
That's how Canada was named. Canada should
Yeah,
have been called Canada, which means home. Canada means nothing, right?
it
When they
should.
showed up and they talked to the native, the indigenous people, they said, "Where are we?" And they're like, "You're home. This is our home." And so they said Canada, and then the white
Huh.
settlers said, "Oh, Canada. All right." And now we have that on our map.
That's interesting because in Icelandic we say Canada, which
Oh,
is because you said it, I was like, that's eerily similar to what I would say.
well, yeah,
That's
it's interesting, and we
interesting.
have that incidentally all the way across Canada. Most of our
Oh yeah.
words, like most of our places, are named after white settlers or what the indigenous people called it beforehand,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yeah.
So, so there are. It's funny when people come to Canada and they try to pronounce some of the words that they're not used to hearing.
Oh, believe me, I can relate.
I bet you can, yeah. So, and the last thing to point out is that there's some things on a map that are going to be names of locations that are literally an advertisement. Now, think specifically of shops and events and having like a coliseum named after some sort of event or some great big bombastic name to get people to come to the coliseum, right? So when we are naming things, it's worth thinking about, especially if we're going to be dealing with trade routes or population centers and whatnot, thinking about what is the purpose of this and who would have named this? How long ago? Has it changed over time? Was there a nickname that took over? Now, our city's only 400 years old, so there's probably not a
Yeah.
whole lot of change, especially because that means it's only one or two generations for elves and dwarves, right?
Yeah.
So it's not going to be too much change throughout the history. What the thing gets named, it's probably going to be named something very, very simple, like, hey, before this city was built, there were two rivers that ran through the area, East River and West River. And so we have East River and West River, right? Like, and it's
Yeah.
not going to change until someone died. And so it's now the memorial. We've got the Ironworkers Memorial Bridge here because it's
Oh
a
yeah.
massive bridge. And a bunch of the ironworkers that built it died building it back in like the early part of the 20th century, right? So its official name is the Second Narrows Bridge because it's the second narrow point down the river,
Oh,
but everybody calls it the Ironworkers Memorial Bridge.
I see. Yeah, we don't have a lot of memorial stuff. We do, however, I know of three lakes, right? You're gonna these names are a howler. I when I learned the names of these three lakes, I couldn't believe the stupidity of my own nation.
Oh yeah.
Upper Lake,
Yeah.
Middle Lake,
Okay.
Lower Lake.
Funny story. Lower Canada is actually above Upper Canada. Now, these terms don't get thrown around anymore because this was back before Canada became, the continent spanning country that it is now. but Lower Canada was further down the river. And before they had maps of the region, they would navigate by upriver and downriver. So Upper and Lower Canada.
I love naming conventions, honestly, of humans especially, and of Western cultures. Are you kidding me? Because it makes no damn sense.
It's ridiculous, and I love how ridiculous that it is, if I can be perfectly honest. So let's jump into the names of our geography that we've discussed so far. So the very first thing I want to touch on is the fact that we are nestled right into the mountains that are right on the coast. And what we've done is
Yes.
we've carved out portions of the mountain to create flat areas, kind of like Machu Picchu for
Yes.
farming. But remember, there's a lot of forest around that are absolutely full of fae, right? And so. And plant monsters, and it's dangerous. Up in the mountains, we've got a bunch of orcs and we've got a bunch of Goliaths. And then in the ocean, the primary population is sea elves. And both the Goliaths and the Sea Elves are part of our city in big ways, right? So we can have Elvish and we can have Goliath languages be a part of this as well.
Yeah.
But let's start off by naming the mountains that are to the north.
Yeah. That you would think, given that I live on a mountainous island, I would have good experience of naming mountains.
Well, here's the hint that I have for you, because I've done lots of maps, I've done lots of homebrew worlds. You can name it, but until you put the ink down on the map or you say the name in a session, the player, like, you can change the name whenever you want. You
Yeah.
just need to have a name. Your players will just think that this is the official name because you're going to state it as fact. This is the Fork Mountains. I named it because there was a fork on the desk beside me when I was looking for a word. But it sounds like something that the players are just going to go, oh yeah, okay, the Fork Mountains, I'm in. There's going to be something here. You don't have to go nuts with this. So what I literally do is I grab off of this list of description or feature, metaphor, function, event, person or organization, or a warning, or an advertisement. Which one am I going to pick for the mountains to the north? And I'm just going to pick something random, slot it in there. And if I don't like it, I'll go back and change it later before the players come into contact with it, before I
I mean,
commit ink, right? So
what did we do? I think there. Let's make it the Gold Mountains, because there was gold found in them.
cool. I'm going to be typing all of this out so that you can get a copy of this afterwards, Andre. But if we're doing the Gold Mountains, that is a description or a feature, or no, a function that was there, right? So the next thing that we're
Yeah.
going to do, the next couple, we should not do a function again, right? This, by varying the naming convention that we're using, it's going to make the whole area feel more organic.
Yep.
Looks like you just had an epiphany.
Oh, because I saw that there's the name for the port as well, and we'll get there when we get, or the bay. We'll get there when we get where I just.
No. If you have an idea, this is the other thing. If lightning strikes your brain, then absolutely, like, plug it in now, because you will lose it later, right?
100%. You're absolutely right. Either the bay or the port, because there are rivers that flow into it.
Yeah.
And if I'm not too mistaken, you can get some golden rivers. So why not? If over time there would be an absence of gold in either or, so why not call it the Golden Bay or the Golden Port? Like, if there's gold in these mountains, the sediment of it would go with it as well. That's just how nature works.
Yeah, we said there's no mine. People are panning for gold, so that makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah.
let's call the local bay, and the reason I chose that one is because it's natural, it's
Yeah.
naturally occurring, as opposed to the port itself. And if we're going to put the port in the Golden Bay, then it could be something like the Shimmering Port in the
Oh
Golden
yeah,
Bay.
I like that. I like that.
So I'm going to throw that in there. Now, we've done Gold Mountains, Golden Bay, Shimmering Port. Can we call Golden Bay the Bay of Gold, or the mountains the Mountains of Gold instead, just to mix up, so we're not
Yeah,
having descriptor,
absolutely.
location? I'm going to change it to
Absolutely.
Mountains of Gold, I think.
Absolutely, yeah.
The next one on the list is, well, we leaned into mountains because there's a lot of passage that has to happen, right? We said that there there was one large highway to this border town, and then everything in the mountains was going to be Goliaths and orcs, so tribal passage through like mountain passes and narrow bridges and shit
Yeah.
like that. So the very first thing that I thought of was we should have one section of it that's a safer section and one section of it
Yeah.
that is the dangerous place to go. Do we want to name them based on peace and war or safety and treacherous terrain? What makes it dangerous? And then what are we going to call it for the safe areas? And the safe areas, this might be a name that the Goliaths have for it.
Yeah. That's also what I'm thinking. I'm thinking we would probably be because of the name of the terrain. Honestly,
But I also
um,
think that with Goliaths and tribal names, you're probably dealing with a metaphor of some sort,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
So it might like what's safe for a nomadic tribe? What does safety mean? Shelter
Ooh.
or warmth or summer.
I think maybe the sheltered path because we have high winds. Maybe no matter where the wind's coming from, there is cover from it in this passage.
So let's add a metaphor on top of that to obfuscate
Yeah,
it just a little bit. So
absolutely.
what is a good metaphor for shelter?
You're the native English speaker, not me.
I'm thinking things like there's canvas, there's shingles, I'm thinking of things that are part of like different kind of structures that are overhead, but also like if you were to shelter your eyes from the sun, you hold your hand up to it as well.
Mhm.
Maybe the gods shelter this section.
Yeah.
Maybe they just call it the heavenly plateau or the plateau, the haven, maybe the haven, maybe the
Oh yeah,
hearth.
the hearth. Yeah, that seems fitting because the vibe I get from Goliath is very nomadic Nordic, and hearths are deep set in Nordic culture.
Let's say the hearthlands, which is a play on the heartlands in
I love it.
the hearthlands, and then the dangerous section does not have to follow the same convention. We can name this off of either orcs or terrain.
I my immediate thought was the goats pass because goats. I thought immediately about goats because they walk on these sheer cliffs. Right,
Yeah.
there's no way anybody in their right mind would go this way.
The goats pass. That is good enough. It doesn't need to be. Again, we can go back in here afterwards and we can call
Yeah.
it the ungulate, which means in English
Oh, thank you.
a hooved creature, right? So
Yeah,
I guess
yeah.
it's two-toed hooves. So maybe it's
Oh
the
yeah, I knew this. I should have known this.
but I might go in and find another obscure word that makes me think of rams or bighorn sheep or something like that, right? So
Yeah, well, I only got goats over here in Iceland. That's the first thing that came to mind.
when we then look to the south, we end up with the sea. The sea is
Mm.
to the south. We have the Golden Bay, but what is our sea going to be called? And seas are usually, when we think about it, in on Earth, they're named after colors or they're named after people, right?
Yeah, they are.
So
Now that I started thinking about it, you're absolutely right. I hadn't thought about it like that.
this isn't an inland sea, though. So we're calling it a sea, but it's probably an ocean,
Yeah.
right? And so, what do we call this portion of the ocean? The same way that, like, all of the oceans are connected, we have just decided as humans to say, this part is the Arctic, this part is the Atlantic, this part is the
Yeah,
Pacific, right?
exactly.
So, what is this part going to be? Do we want to make it dangerous waters? Do we want to make it trading routes? Do we want to make it there once was a kraken that lived here, and they call it the beak in this region. Or like what where do we want to go with this one?
Oh, boy. Um wow, this is so in depth. I'm out of my league here. um I'm trying to just get inspiration from the few naming conventions we have here on my own island, but we have more fjords than anything, so we have named the fjords, not the seas themselves.
Yeah. This to me feels like we should be talking about metaphor more than anything else,
Yeah.
or a warning, one or the other. A lot of the stuff we tend to get is going to be like the Siren Sea and shit like that, or Harpy Bay. Like a lot of medieval waterways, especially open water, are named after the creatures that are around it.
Okay, okay.
We haven't done anything that's particularly fantastical yet as far as
No.
our naming. Like there's nothing medieval fantasy about it yet. So what lives in we could just look again, we don't have to go super in depth with this. The Dragon Sea is a good name for it.
That was exactly what I was thinking as well. But I thought maybe we could go the bronze sea because there's a bronze dragon somewhere.
So my only thought is we've got the Golden Bay and then the you
So
want
yeah,
to put
okay, I see what
Bronze
you I
Sea.
see what you mean. I see what you mean. I see
Yeah.
what you mean. I see what you mean. I mean, yeah, Dragon Sea is solid as well.
Well, I'm trying to think we if we wanted to obfuscate it, we could go with the Sapphire Sea because there's sapphire dragons, there's because there's gem
Oh,
dragons.
oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't remember if they're particularly coastal.
The Topaz Sea.
Topaz Sea.
Topaz dragons were aquatic, even though they didn't like to be.
Yeah. Or we can name it after dragon turtle or a sea serpent.
Serpent Sea. That's a lot of S's. I
Yeah, do you
mean,
want to go?
then yeah, I think yeah, the Serpent Sea that sounds like a warning as well. I like that.
What? I'll tell you. It's here we go. I'm going with the metaphor here. I wanted to obfuscate it a little bit further,
Mhm.
and we're naming all dragons and serpents and stuff. They all have scales. So the Sea of Scales.
Oh, that's good. That's
And I
good.
I like it because it's a double entendre as well because
Yeah,
we have
absolutely.
merchants who will use scales to weigh their goods as well. So
This is what 20 years of DMing does to you, maybe more.
the Sea of Scales. Now we have
I've only DM'd for 3 years. I haven't got this experience.
this is the thing that I started looking for is the metaphors, especially. I can go in there and I can start to try to find similarities and commonalities between different things. Like what happens above the surface, what happens below the surface. And if
Yeah.
I can sit there and kind of abstract ideas out of it, then I can put it together. We have a local forest. The only thing I want to say about the local forest as well, because besides the fact that we have Fae, is everything else we have for the geography is either about gold or it starts with the word the. We have the Hearthlands, the Goat's Pass, and the Sea of Scales. So this one
Mhm.
shouldn't be a the name.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
yeah,
it
yeah.
we start to sound like we're just repeating ourselves.
Yeah.
And this is one of the other things about naming conventions. If they can start to see your pattern, that will break their suspension of disbelief, right?
Yeah.
So this is why we have multiple things to lean on. This can be one of the things that I like to do, and we don't have to do this, but I'm
Okay.
just bringing it up. One of the things that I like to
Yeah.
do is have something that is at surface level very benign and kind of friendly. And the more you stop and think about it, the more dangerous and ominous it sounds.
Oh,
Something
that's just
like
fun though.
uh,
That's
I
just fun.
had I had a bunch of warnings posted around a forest and a bunch of bodies littered on the side of the road. And the bodies all had signs or little notes clutched in their hands that matched the message on all of the signs throughout the forest that said, "Beware the children of laughter." Now, they ended up meeting Laughter. Laughter was a person, and she took care of orphans, and she'd been training them kind of to be Robin Hood kind of people. So
Oh, I
they
see.
were,
Okay, okay, okay.
yeah, they were bandits out in the road, but they were all like under the age of 10. And so beware the children of laughter. But my players hadn't seen them before. They were fucking terrified of the
Yeah,
children of
look,
laughter.
you said that name, and I just thought of like horror movie type shit just immediately. I'm like, nah, fuck this. I'm
But
out. Bye bye.
but then they met Laughter, who was a tiefling who was running an orphanage and trying to make sure that all the kids were safe, right?
Yeah.
So again, it I was playing with expectations there. If we're dealing with the Fae, what is happening in this forest?
There's a lot of stuff happening in this forest if the Fae are involved. Ooh, oh boy.
What if Fae have in common? Like when we think about Fae, we think of like pixie wings, think of like fairy dust, we think of deals and They often have horns. They're very in touch with nature. I'm kind of glomming on myself to the idea of dust, like the dusty
Yeah.
woods. Or, and again, we don't have to go crazy because it's
No.
Fey and the Fey comes from the Fey Wild. We could just have this be Wildwoods and it's all one word, right?
Yeah.
The more we overthink it to try to find the right thing, the less progress we're going to make. Because as we go
Exactly.
further and we start talking about naming some of the Fae that might be out there, we may be inspired to go back and change this.
Yeah,
When
exactly. I
you're
think Wildwoods is good because they come from the Fey Wild.
and but it's also like nature is wild as well, so your players might not immediately put that together that it's the Fey
Yeah,
Wild, right?
absolutely. I think that's fantastic.
I'm gonna put a hyphen between wild and woods just because that's weird.
Yeah, that's
And that's like there's no reason for me to do that, but it's Fey, so I also think that if you're sitting there looking at a beautifully drawn map and it says Wild Woods, that's maybe wild spelled with a Y.
that's just so. The weirder the names are, the funnier I think, and the more confused any player would be.
Yeah. Now, the next one that we have to name, we're going to move into kind of the political parties here, the organizations. We could get lost.
Just real quick. It is New Year's in Iceland, and we have like we don't our firework laws are not crazy. So if you hear fireworks in the background, I'm sorry.
Sure, I haven't heard anything yet, but sure, go nuts.
Okay, no, I just heard one, and it was relatively close, and I'm just waiting for like any of my neighbors to set anything off because we love fireworks.
Fair enough.
We make Fourth of July in America look like a fucking joke.
A lot of guys walking around with only three fingers.
There's a few, yeah.
Yeah. So the next thing we're going to look at is the political parties, the organizations, and stuff. This is a huge sinkhole to go down because what you're going to want to do here is think about the history because a lot of stuff is named on things that have happened in the past, usually founding members of something or coalitions of things, or we start to look at political history or organizational history. Like the first thing we've got to name is a human kingdom. Man, when you look at how the names of most countries are created, they're usually named after something like home or land or something like that. Like, and then just
Oh yeah,
translated into from that language. And but we also have things like the United States of America, right?
I mean,
And
yeah. How much up your own? Okay, I'll stop.
and but we have a lot of the Republic of is something that we see a lot of in naming
Yes, that's also
conventions.
true.
And so we're talking not just about the land, but also like the government behind, which is what the United States are. Sometimes you just get a straight up fucking description, like Iceland.
Well, yeah, we got our name because one of the guys that came here, the first thing he saw was ice.
Yep.
There you go. Do you want to know why Greenland is named Greenland? It's a scam. This guy found one place that was green, named it Greenland, so everybody would come there.
The story
Greenland
that
is a scam.
the story that I was told in school was the map that because he only had parts of coasts drawn, right? Because he didn't go all the way around either
Oh yeah,
Iceland or Greenland. And he had them mislabeled because he found grass on one of them and ice on the other, and he got them backwards.
yeah. The Eric the Red, the one who found Greenland.
Yeah.
He how I learned it anyway was that he found the first thing he found was rock and ice. Then he found a little bit of green and was like, I want other people to come here. I don't want to be alone here. The fuck?
Oh, so he just so it was an advertisement. It was
yeah,
marketing.
it's a scam.
So when we look at our human kingdom, how are we going to name this? Is this going to be an advertisement?
No,
Like,
I don't think so.
is this going to be named after a person or a family, or is it going to be named after the kind of geographical region?
I think the geography could be fun to try to mess with a little bit.
Now, we are rammed in between, it's a border town between mountain and sea. We don't have to make any solid decisions yet, but how do you picture the rest of the kingdom? Is this on an island? Does it stretch off into the desert? Is it grasslands? Is it all along a coastal region. Just make any decision. It doesn't matter what it is, because we're not
I
going there.
think, yeah. Well, I think there's definitely plains, like, or but not like fun plains or the traditional desert of sorts. I think a fun thing to do would be having it very rocky, like, but not mountainous. And
All right.
then there's just this town that for some reason is just blessed.
Okay, so here's what I do is I head over to thesaurus.com and I see what we have for Rocky. Craggy, jagged, and rough. None of those are good. But weak matches are bouldered, flintied, hard. These aren't good. We get lithic, lapidarian, petrous. These are words that I don't think the average person is going to be particularly familiar with. What does lapidarian mean?
There is one. This is also taken back from history, and the people who first found well, there were of course indigenous people in Canada, but I remember the story of when the Vikings first touched land in North America. I'm sure you probably learned this as well at some point. They touched land on a very rocky area,
Yeah.
and they called it Markland because it was useless. It was just rocks. So Mark, I'm I don't know. I think English is probably the way to go because Icelandic is
The
finicky.
word the word lithic is an archaeological or a geological term that means of the nature of or relating to stone.
Okay.
So lithic is not something that our players might necessarily be familiar with. Let's grab any language that your players are not going to be familiar with. Just pick something off the top of your head.
Wait, hold on. One more time. I
Pick
got zoned out for a second.
any language that your players are not familiar with.
Do you mean like real life or D&D? Like
No, real life.
real life that my players would not be familiar with. Okay. Let's go with Hungarian.
Okay. We like the word rocky. Rocky, I'm just gonna go rock, is Zikla in Hungarian. Szikla.
Yeah, that sounds about right for Hungarian.
What about just the Zikla kingdom or
The Kingdom of Zikla.
or what about SZIK, and because it's LA we could end that with land. It could be Zikland, and that could be.
Yeah, that's pretty solid actually.
We don't have to go over the top and overthink this shit, right? So we have a little bit on this to obfuscate it, but this is going to be a major word that gets repeated over and over and over again. The
Yeah.
Elven Kingdom.
Ooh, I mean, it's elves, so I'm thinking immediately forest or trees.
I found an English to Elvish translator. Now it's going to be for Lord of the Rings.
That's all right. I mean, you found something, which is, I didn't know there was one.
Oh, never mind. It just puts it in the Elvish script. That's not an actual
Ah,
language translator. Here we go. Common to Elvish D&D. All right. Let's go, what? Home of the trees. Fuck, there's so many fucking words.
me at school, honestly. There's so many
What
fucking
about just
words.
like treetops? Keep
Oh
it.
yeah, real simple. I mean, it like you stated, it doesn't have to be any more than that.
Tree home. Treetops didn't have a translation. Tree home is Shanta and Nile.
Chantanile, yeah, that sounds
Shanta and
pretty Elvish
Nile.
to me. Chantanile, yeah.
I like it because it's got the word Enile, which means home.
Oh,
But that's close to the word denial, which has a negative connotation to it. And this is going to be the evil Elven Kingdom, right?
this is fantastic.
An orc warband. That's the other thing that I'm not really talking about, and I've mentioned a couple times, is what sounds good, what feels good. A
Yeah.
lot of the times we're just throwing shit at the wall and saying it out loud until it sticks. When it comes to naming NPCs, it's actually surprisingly easy to do once you come up with your method. But
Okay,
naming
that's cool.
geography and organizations is so much more difficult. An
Oh yeah,
orc warband. This one can be relatively easy. Orcs not known for
yeah.
their hyper intelligence, so they could just be the red tooth tribe or whatever you wanted to call it, right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, what? We're in the let's not fucking let's not the blue spears because they found some blue dye and thought it was cool. I don't know.
Yeah, it can be something as simple as there are blue flowers that are all along the goat's pass, and that's one of
Yeah,
their like coming of age rituals is to go get enough to dye yourself and your spear
yeah,
blue, right? So, Goliath tribe. I feel like we should have two of them.
yes. I mean, I think because Goliaths they call themselves herds. That's just in D&D
Yeah,
lore. I mean, anybody can change it, but I like the fact that it's a herd. I
yeah.
really do. I mean, I remember it. I mean, it can be so simple. I remember I've gone over some Ram the Frostman, and there's the herd of the elk. There's this and that herd. It's so simple. I think.
So what I've done is I've gone over to forgottenrealms.fandom.com, and there's just a wealth of information in here. And I just searched for Goliath,
Oh yeah.
just in general. And I am scrolling around until I see something that looks like a noun that I can use, right? The spine of the world in the north was home to two rival Goliath clans who fiercely competed for territory and resources. The Akhenathi and the Thunlakalaga.
I mean, yeah, and then as well, it can be as simple as just picking a name out of thin air. Really, just if I remember you're not particularly liking D&D Beyond, but D&D Beyond has this very cool thing. It is basically a link to the fantasy name generator website.
Which
Um,
which one? Because there's a couple of the name generator websites that I have a strong hatred for. Hold on, let me go onto my D&D Beyond tools. Where am I going to find this?
under if you go, I can just link it to you right now.
No, let's find out where it is so that people listening can follow along.
Or that if you go to if you just if it's especially I have at least found it when you're making a character, if you just go to create a character, and it is just under the name in the character sheets on in the create a character.
All right, hold on.
Oh, I
I
found it.
am doing that right now.
Yeah, and it should be there most of the time. If you just press home when you're making a character, it should be character name and under the names by fantasy name generator.
It doesn't do it on the quick build standard. Oh, it just has suggestions here, and then names by fantasy name generator. This is the site that I hate.
I love this website. It is.
A lot of people
I
do.
mostly use it for last and just like filler names. I don't use it much anymore. I used to use it quite a lot.
The moment that you get away from your human dwarves and elves, you just start to get into some of the most jankiest bullshit. I'm literally just going to grab the tribes out of the spine of the world in the north and assume
Yep.
that my players are not going to know this deep dive, this obscure D&D knowledge. And so I'm just going to recycle these. There's no
Yeah.
harm in stealing other people's work as long as you're not
Absolutely not.
monetizing off of it, right? So,
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. As
uh,
Michael Bublé said, it's inspiration if you steal it enough.
yep. Sea elves. Do the sea elves have an actual like government, or are they just kind of anarchists? They all just live their own lives.
I feel like yeah, they're very anarchy, but they still hold
There's
because
codes
in the gymnasium, yeah, in the gymnasium, that's what it was, right? I'm saying
yeah.
that.
So the sea
Gymnasium.
elves, they would have like a territory as opposed to a kingdom, right?
Yes.
What do we want
Well,
to
it's
call that?
because ooh, I'm thinking something reef, right? Because where else would they live?
Yeah, I'm into it. What about something like the Reef of Plenty? Because
Yeah.
there'll be a lot of coral or a lot of fish. Like this
Yeah,
is.
there's just it is plentiful.
Do we want? Okay, is it a reef, but they've named it like the Garden of Plenty or something?
Yeah, I think so.
Again, I'm trying to take like now that we have a basic ID and a base description, what do the people there call it, right? And that was
Yeah,
my
exactly.
next. So, and I don't think it's going to be the garden. It's just going to be called Garden of Plenty.
Yeah. These seals are anarchist enough. I don't think they're gonna put any rules into their words.
Now, as we go in the campaign, there's going to be a whole lot of different merchants and whatnot that are coming in off the ships, right? But there should be
Yeah.
one main seafaring merchant guild that the players are going to have a good touchstone with and a good relationship with right off the bat. So we need to name them, and this should be an advertisement, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So my thought process here is going to be something about reliability or handshakes or fair deals or something like that, right? That's kind of the nature we're heading in, or just money, right?
Yeah, quick and easy. Money.
Yeah, but when we talk about money in D&D, I mean, they did this right in one of the fucking titles of the books. The coins are called dragons, right? That's what Dragon Heist is about, is stealing the dragons.
I did not. That's pretty cool.
So, what do the seafaring merchants trade in? Do they trade in krakens? Do they trade in like you have a kraken, but it can be broken up into 10 squids, and so they've got like cheap little.
That's great. I like that. I like that a lot, actually.
So like their bigger coins are krakens, their smaller coins are squids, and they're gonna be named the. It could just be the Kraken Guild. We don't have to go crazier than that, right?
Yeah, right. Well, I went straight to think because you said that the coins are called dragons in D&D. I immediately went, "What the fuck is an electrum dragon then?" Because
The dragons are just like we call dollars bucks, right? Do you have a couple of bucks? Do you have a couple of-
right, yeah. Because $1 used to be $1. Yeah. I get it. I get it. That's interesting.
And I believe it's the gold pieces that are called dragons.
Okay.
So, we have an order of knights,
Yes, we do.
and they are honorable and they are good.
Yeah.
These are the good guys. What do we want to name them? This is where we end up with some people are tempted to just be too cutesy with shit. Like, well, they're not the Knights of the Round Table. They're gonna be they're gonna be the Knights of the Triangle Chair, right? And like I have seen that in D&D, and I understand that impulse to make the pun to tell the joke. If you
Yeah.
want to have a series campaign, you should absolutely not be doing that for your organizations. There's a time and a place for that, and that's when you're naming businesses. Like taverns
Yeah.
can be puns, right? Shops can be puns, right? But your order of honorable knights should not be.
I I just went to the order of the just, the order of the protectors, just something, because it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't. I don't feel like it has to be much. I don't think knights are gonna make it any more complex. It's gonna. I feel like it's gonna be pretty straightforward.
Let's obfuscate it by one level, right? Like
Okay.
protector, what protects? The shield, the sword, the armor, the helm, like order of the
Okay.
helm, order of the, and then we just add a descriptor on it. Order of the red helm, order of the gleaming shield, order of, are they peacekeepers? Like they go in with diplomacy first? Are they order of
I
the,
yes.
right?
I yeah. Diplomacy first. I'm thinking shield something.
What about the order of the sheath, which means that they keep their blades stowed as
Ooh,
long as possible?
I like that. I like that.
And again, like we don't have to go crazy with it.
Yeah.
If we don't
Order of the white sheath.
if we don't want to go colors, we can do something that like that for example, if we don't there's a big difference between the order of the red sheath and the order of the bloody sheath. Both are red. There's the order of the yellow
Yeah.
sheath and the order of the dawn sheath. Both are like a yellow kind of sun feel, right? So pick a color, and then what medieval thing is that color?
Okay.
You said white,
Yeah.
right? So what are white things?
Snow, winter,
Yeah.
Order of the Winter Sheath because they're I don't know.
But again, this could be named after a thing that happened. There was a huge diplomatic thing that they oversaw between two warring kingdoms, and it happened on the shortest, darkest day of winter. And so they
Yeah,
became known as everyone else had their swords drawn. They sheathed theirs. Now they're the Order of the Winter Sheath.
I like that. I like that. Wow, naming stuff is way easier when you, especially talking with somebody else.
Bouncing ideas off of other ideas is really useful, and that's why I like having this list of things to like descriptions or features, metaphors, functions, events, person or organization, because you get one and then you bang it off of another one, right? We wanted to go simple, and so we went with something like function. Or the very first thing was they were a protector. Then we made it a metaphor, and then we put it up against an event that happened, and now we have
Yeah.
the Order of the Winter Sheath, which actually I really fucking like, and I might steal that.
That's perfectly fine. We're doing
Uh,
this together after all.
what about the Town Guard organization? This can be a whole lot dumber, which is not to say that it's going to
Yeah,
be stupid. It just doesn't have to
yeah,
have the thought put into it, right?
yeah. I'm. Is it an order? Is it an organization?
It's probably run right out of the. Okay, so we have a police station, right?
Yeah,
The knights will be out of the castle and the noble district. These guys will be out of the merchant district and the town
yeah.
square. And like this, these are your
Thinking
middle class guys going to work.
just very, very simple because it's the order of the winter sheaths. Just calling the town guards snows because they are or flakes because they are the flakes of winter or the snow of winter.
Now, you can't use the word flake because flake in English also means unreliable.
That that's funny.
But that could be their nickname that the locals call them. If like, are
Yeah,
they guards? Like, are they guards or are these guys the flakes, right? Which just
yeah.
means that they're the unreliable side of things. Or you can have them have nothing to do with the knights at all.
That's also
Because the
true.
knights have
Yeah,
come in with the Duke, right? So these guys, this town guard organization could just be whatever we name the city, could just be the whatever watch, city
yeah.
guard, city.
Could yeah. Or it could be, like you said, Game of Thrones is great for this. It could be something to do with their clothings, because you have the gold cloaks
Yeah.
in Game of Thrones because they have, well, you guessed it, golden cloaks.
Well, we talked before in the last episode about how we had the different gates in the different parts of the city, right? And I
Yeah,
said, it could be like the Bronze Gate and the Iron Gate, and depending on what helmet they're wearing, right, would be, which gate they're positioned at. So what if they were the gleaming helms, the hard helms, the like
yeah,
something metal,
yeah.
right?
I like that as well. And then the locals will call them all buckets because,
Love it. Yeah, let's call them hard helms because I think that
yeah.
and then buckets. Cool. City name. This is the most important thing that we're gonna name today.
So I I have had a city name in for a while, and the fact that it kind of fits into this city as well is
Sure.
very cool. So I have always had the name Windtread in my head. So I have thought about it now, just connecting everything, because there is windy and people have tread upon this land now. Now it is called Wind Tread or Windtread.
Windtread. So tread TREAD.
Yes,
Okay. All one word.
all one word.
So here's my recommendation when you're dealing with the wind tread.
Yeah,
Take out the A in tread because it makes it a little bit of a
I love it.
bastardization,
I love it.
and you're going to avoid your players reading it for the first time and going, it's wind read.
Yep. Do you know what? Yep. I can see that happening with my group actually.
Incidentally, that's the last step when you're done naming everything is you go back over it and you say, how are my idiot players gonna fuck this up?
This is something I've had in mind as well. I've had this in mind. I was like, when we were naming the kingdom, I was like, how will my players fuck this for me?
Yeah. So now the castle. It can just be Castle Wintred, or it could be
Yeah,
named. And we don't have to go any deeper than that. Originally, we had the history, which was based on 400-year-old. The city is 400 years old. The
yeah,
war in the area was 300 years ago. There was one person who realized it's a good place for a fort. This was not necessarily the same person that brokered the peace arrangement with the Goliaths and the Sea Elves, but so that could be a person that founded the city, and someone else
yeah,
founded a fort, and someone else made a castle. Like we could name the castle after any one of these people who are like a military leader, or it could be named after the Battle of whatever. Or
yeah,
we have the Shimmering Port. So we could have the Shimmering Keep, right? So it's really whatever you want to do with the castle name, because as long as it is a powerful sounding name when you
yeah,
say it out loud, right? And Wintred Castle is a good name. We don't
yeah.
have to go deeper than that. I'm just like, there are lots
I
of ways to name the castle. So
I think we can have that for now, and if we can just come back to it if we find something better, because like you said, Winter Castle is pretty solid.
instead of Wintred Castle, let's call it Castle Wintred.
Castle Winter. Yeah. See, I'm going to leave the editing of the names up to you. The
Sure,
native
all
English
right.
speaker. The native English speaker.
The dungeons. We mentioned that there were a couple of neat options for the dungeons. One of them was them hanging over the cliff and just being
Yes.
completely battered by the elements. Another one being built into the cliff face so you could see the like a wall of like windows that the
Yeah.
prisoners could see out of. And the whole dungeon's actually like above the castle.
Yeah.
And there would be stories of people like digging upwards instead of downwards to get
Down.
out.
Yeah. Absolutely. How much more annoying would that be? Digging up.
Oh, it'd be brutal. And then there'd be like cave-ins every once in a while. The guards come by and they find like one of the cells has just been completely caved in. They can see a foot sticking out from underneath the rubble.
Yeah.
Someone was trying to get out again. What about calling this something it from because everybody else out in the city is going to be able to see this, right?
Yeah.
What about the dungeon just being named like the Wall of Woe or something?
I like that. Just I do. I was thinking something similar. Yeah.
Now, normally the wind comes in off of the ocean, but every once in a while, when everything is still, you can, if you strain your ears, hear the prisoners moaning and crying out for help.
Yeah.
Town Square.
Town Square. I mean,
We could just call it the Town Square. It doesn't have to get deeper than that.
yeah. I mean,
If it had a big statue or a clock tower or something we wanted to feature, then it's worth naming. But as it
yeah.
stands now, our town square was just large and open
Yeah.
and clean. It could just be the town square.
I'm thinking so as well for now, at least. Yeah. The town square.
The gymnasia. This is where the philosophers meet.
Yeah. Those fuckers.
All right. So with the gymnasia, the meeting of minds, we've got kind of a do we want to give this a misnomer? Something like the battlefield, because this is where the philosophers will talk all night arguing about shit, right? Or do we want it to be something far more easygoing and passive? Or do we want it to be something that's all inclusive, like the common something, right?
Yeah. I think making it being an accepting place would do it good. Um, I don't know why. My immediate thought was the common room, but not. I'm not. That's a different thing.
Yeah, that's a very, very different thing.
Yeah.
Back to thesaurus.com,
Our best friend.
our best friend today. I actually have it ready to go on my toolbar because I dig
Oh,
into
do
it
you?
all of the
Oh
time.
yeah.
Yeah. Something that is welcoming and I'm gonna type in friendly, see what we get. Sociable. We just call it the sociable.
Yeah.
What else do we have here? Neighborly, familiar, favorable, cordial, chummy, beneficial, attentive. It's not really what we're looking for. I
Courtship
like
court.
I like sociable. Let me see. Sociable, accessible, conversable, convivial. Like there's nothing that's really great. What if we type in the word social? Civil, communal, collective, common, community, societal.
I think the collective, because the collective races that live here.
Beauty, beauty. I like what you said about the collective. However, the collective to me always sounds like a hive mind kind of thing as opposed to individual. Uh, but I was thinking, what you said was, we're melding different cultures together, right?
Yeah,
From the mountains to the ocean.
yeah.
We have something here called the Sea to Sky Highway because it is nestled between the mountains and the ocean. But also, it goes right from a port all the way up to Whistler, where we do all of our skiing. So it's called the Sea to Sky. What if this
Ooh,
was just the Sea to Sky Gymnasia or the Sea to Sky Collective?
I
Or
like I like that.
because your players will never have heard of this, right?
No, absolutely. Unless they've lived in Vancouver or Canada for however many years,
Yeah.
which they haven't. I'm
So
pretty sure of that.
but what's the last word? The Sea to Sky what?
Council, collective.
Council's good. The Sea to Sky Council.
Yeah.
All right. So the last things that we have now are we have three districts. We have the Noble District, the Market District, and the Poor District.
Yeah. I mean, we touched on this kind of with the gates, because there were different types of gates, and the town guard would be named after whichever they guard.
Yeah, let's think about precious metals. The Poor District is probably iron.
Yeah,
That'll be the Iron Gate, right? Which will
the
also
Iron
be
Gate.
the
Yeah.
strongest one, I would assume,
Oh yeah.
for
So
defenses.
it is.
So
Yeah, since it is the outermost gate. Yeah.
So the Iron District, what says currency besides gold? Because we have gold,
Silver,
silver district.
and then noble platinum district.
Go mithril,
Go even better, mithril district.
mithril district. All right, that doesn't have to be hard,
No,
right?
it
So
wasn't hard either. It was great.
yeah. So this brings us to our businesses. We have a tavern, an inn, an orphanage, a bathhouse, a place for the magical material components, a magical armory, two bakers, a goldsmith, a woodcarver, a cartwright, and a scribe. That's
Yeah,
12
two
business.
bakers, two bakers that are against each other. So
Yes.
so remember this.
So, I like to make this. I'm going to make it easy. I usually have a couple of names locked and loaded for taverns and inns. An
Mhm.
inn usually has a small tavern in it or a small restaurant portion to it. And
Yeah.
my favorite one in every single one of my cities, you will always be able to find the franchise business of Eats and Sheets.
Eating sheets. I like that. That's really good. Somebody write that down, please.
I just did for you. There you go. The Eats.
Thank you.
So that's the inn. So that one's pretty straightforward. The next thing I want to point out, because I'm gonna hop around the list here for a moment, right?
That's no problem.
The next thing I'm going to point out is that the magical material components is run by a hag. Everyone knows she's a hag, but she's good aligned. That's what we decided,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So hags are named Granny if they're the head lead of a coven, or Auntie if they're not. So
Yeah.
this could just be Auntie, whatever we name her, convections, right? Like
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be more intense than that because some of these will be named after people.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean,
So
when you said Granny, my immediate thought was Granny Smith, but that's an apple. I'm probably somebody's grandma, to be honest.
No. But that's cool because it could be her fake name, right? Like
Yeah.
is Granny Smith's convections. And when you come in, she goes to give you an apple. Every purchase comes with a free apple, right?
That's amazing.
It's
That's so good.
not magical. It's just grandmotherly.
It's just an apple. Don't worry about it. Like, I like that.
The magical armory will come back to, the orphanage will come back to, the goldsmith. We also had a doctor's house, but again, that one's just going to be named after the doctor when we get to him.
Yeah, I agree.
However, I am going to take a second to jump over to, so we're going to name NPCs later, jump over to our wonderful Fabe and Granny Smith. And if anybody asks her, she'll have some bullshit thing about my father was a blacksmith, then his father before him, and so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
It's all lies, but that's our cover.
Yeah.
When it comes to, we've got a goldsmith, a wood carver, a cartwright, and a scribe, and bakers. These are all shops where people are going to go, which means they can be named something cutesy. Like it can be an advertisement, or it can be very like on the nose. If the wood carver, we decide, does not have an imagination, then it can just be something like shavings,
Yeah.
right? So let's look at one at a time. I'm going to start at the bottom, work my way up with the scribe.
Okay.
This is going to be a scrivener's like little office. There's going to be a few little scribes in there working. What's our scribe? What is this business going to be named?
I mean, I don't know why my immediate thought went the ink and quill, because what do they use? The ink and quill, but I feel like I probably heard that somewhere. I know I have.
But would your players know it? Because if you have a good name and your players haven't heard it, there's no harm in reusing it.
I don't believe so. I don't think they would, honestly. One of them literally hasn't seen a Disney movie, which is unbelievable to me. So I don't think.
What if we called it the well? Because the ink is held in a little ink well.
I like that. I like that as well. The well, yeah. And it is a well of information.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw that in there. The cartwright. This name is going to be important just because we also are going to focus on the warehouses as well, which we talked about, and one of them was the Cartwright's warehouse. So there'll probably be a murder mystery or a robbery or a heist or something that'll happen.
Yeah. Cartwrights.
I mean, here's your pun. Your pun. It's just called Cartwright, as in correct. Because we cart right.
That's good. I like that. I do.
That's
like
such a bullshit name, and I actually fucking love it. So
look, I'm such a. The only thing I came up with was like just brand name for cars already. I was like, no, let's not make it too fucking obvious, please.
Yeah, like Mercedes, the car.
Yes, right? Exactly. That was exactly. It was just a Mercedes, Porsche. Like, what can I do? If you get really higher up, you get Ferrari.
Wood carver.
I mean, I liked shavings, to be fair.
Yeah, all right. Again, we can come back and change this whenever we want during the campaign prep, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
All of this is just a place to start. Because as we go on and we start to realize that, hey, this doesn't feel right in my mouth, or it rhymes with this thing, or we end up like you had before the idea of what would you want to name that was bronze?
Oh, it was the sea, the bronze sea.
Yeah, the bronze sea. And I'm like, not with the Golden Bay. It's too close.
Yeah, absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
So when we come back and look at this stuff later, we might see the Goat's Pass is not scary enough. And maybe it's a mispronunciation of the Ghost's Pass or something. But this is shit we're going to look at later, right? So
how did your brain go? That's amazing.
I've done this a lot.
What, 20 years of experience as a DM or something like that?
Yeah, we're pushing towards it, definitely.
It's almost as long as I've been alive. Anyway.
Goldsmith. Here's one thing that we've done. We've done Granny Smith as confectionery, but we not confectionery. That she's not running a confectionery. What was the word? It was convections. There we go. The goldsmith. Just make him a gnome with his name is like Twinkle Knuckle or some bullshit like that, right? And then, but
I'm surprised you went gnome, to be honest.
Well, in my head, jewelers and fine. Okay, so it's called whitesmithing, and a whitesmith is any sort of small, simple, like intricate work that then gets broken out to be like silver and tin and right. So, but I would just call it like sparkle knuckles. And I would just leave it at that, like just apostrophe S. There we go. So whatever this damn gnome's name is going to be, I'm going to run over to that damn fantasy generator, and we're going to see what kind of bullshit gnome words it comes up with. I'm already annoyed just by clicking on this. Like I have PTSD from this fucking site.
Of course you do.
And it has so many categories, and so many of them are just.
I personally think it's a great website if you're like absolutely blanking because there is so much.
If you're blanking, that sure, but like I clicked on the gnome name generator, and it's not D&D at all. Clunsmidus is not a D&D gnome name.
I think there might be a D&D section in the website itself.
Let me see.
I remember that. Let me. That's not it. There we go. Fantasy. What's their
female names are like
here it is.
Nan Band. Where did you find it?
I'm not sure how. I just kind of did. If you go into a name that you just scroll up, at least how I did it. Here's Deep Gnome and trying to see if there's and just gnome as well. Let me see. Let's see. That's not it. That's half work. The fuck. Why am I clicking that? There we go. Let me see. Deep Gnome. I got. Here's one. Jade Seeker. Crag Brander.
Pick one you like.
Pick one I like. All right. Let's see. This one this one isn't even original. Just Kuel Surveyor.
Yeah. This is what I mean. Like these are not great names.
No, absolutely. I mean, this one is particularly bad, but
ideally, I'm looking for something that has the same kind of fantastical feel as Rumpelstiltskin.
Yeah,
right?
I hear you. I mean, so yeah, some of these names aren't great. I mean, some of these aren't fantastic, as you said. I mean, Pichu, is that one? I don't even know how to read that. Admiral Children, Jesus Christ.
All right, so this is the point where we've now gotten caught up on something, and this is what kills the naming convention, right? Is when you get so zoned in on one thing when you've got a list of like 70 other things to name at this point. And this is where some people will burn out and say prep is not for me.
Yeah,
right?
I can see that, yeah.
So, let us grab a language. Does anybody speak Swedish in your group?
Not well enough. I am the only one that would possibly get a Swedish reference.
Let's grab the word for toadstool. Brings us to Padsvamp. Let's see if mushroom is going to be a better one. Oh, it's just svamp. All right. So
swamp, yeah, that one they'll get because of swamp. That's hilarious. I didn't know that. That's funny.
What about, I feel like maybe Swedish might be too well known. Do we have?
I mean, it's also Swedish has an Icelandic are very similar as a language.
What about Slovenian?
I couldn't tell you a single word in Slovenian, so yeah, that should be good.
Perfect. Mushroom is goba.
Oh, I like that. Goba.
We're going to call it gobas.
Gobas, yeah, that's good. See, there it is.
When you get hung up on a thing, go back to your naming conventions, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just going to end up scrolling or playing with letters or whatever. So the goldsmith's name is Mr. Goba. And if anybody ever asks him what his name is, he doesn't tell anyone. He's been to the Feywild. You don't tell anyone your full name.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's only ever going to be Mr. Goba.
Mr. Goba. I like
bakers.
That. Were we what did we decide we were gonna make him halflings? No, halfling and a furbolg, wasn't it? I feel like that was what we decided. Yeah.
Yeah. So like this one can be like the halfling will be Spitwhistle Sweets.
Yeah, I like that.
And the furbolg will be
naming conventions do furbolgs have? I only remember them taking elven names when they go outside of a forest or their own.
Tribe. Yeah, they're not the most well-known naming conventions. We don't have to name it after we've named one of them after a person. We should name another one after a product, right?
Yeah.
So we have Spitwhistle Sweets, but it would be good. Like the other one has renamed his business to be, it was Sweet Tooth, but now it's Sweeter Tooth because he's sweeter than the other guy, or Sweeter Teeth, or something.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, you want to lock that in?
Yeah, sweeter teeth or sweeter tooth. That's funny.
We have four more to do now: a tavern, an orphanage, a bathhouse, and a magical armory.
Yeah, magical armory. I mean, does it have to be complex?
No, it could be really simple. It could be maybe he only sells things based on bidding, right? And it's like the auction house. Or maybe
Mm.
it is the another word for magical. 'Cause
Fantastical, mystical.
yeah, I think mystical because I don't want to necessarily say magical, right? That's too on the
Yeah,
nose.
exactly.
What about mystical?
Mystical auctions, mystical biddings. No, that sounds way too something else.
No, but I like that. Like, because biddings could also be like, because people do their dark biddings as well,
Yeah,
right?
that's exactly what I was like. That's what threw me off. But at the same time, yeah, it is funny to have an odder side to it. Yeah, I
Myst-
like that mystical biddings. Because the players are just gonna think, oh, this is some dark shit here, and then it's just a guy with a bunch of magic weapons.
yeah, and like the shop is only open one day a month, right? Because the rest of the time
Yeah,
he's dealing with merchants, right? When the shop opens up, everybody shows up. They always know it's on the third whatever day of the month, and then he's like, "Here we
yeah,
go." Bathhouse can just be called what? Waves or steam or something. Like it doesn't have to be.
yeah. I mean,
You don't want it to
yeah,
be called
Steam.
bubbles. That's bad.
Ooh, I mean, I liked steamed or steam something or mist because of the mist
Like
something.
mist rising off the water.
Yeah.
What if the thing in it is it's all whatever salts or anything they put in there makes the mist a different color.
Oh yeah.
So pick a color like that you want to describe when they walk in. They go to the bathhouse to meet up with, an NPC, and the whole area, the air is just full of purple or teal or orange. Like what color is this mist going to be?
I was just thinking teal, the teal mist or
Teal mist. That gives us an orphanage and a tavern.
orphanage in a tavern. I
Let's do
mean, how
let's do the
taverns
tavern.
were
Let's
named. Yeah, they were named pretty simply. It was just what I mean. There was I know of a tavern called the Black Cat because the sign was a black cat. That's how simple it is.
yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of tavern names. I mean, there's the Prancing Pony, there's the Green Dragon, there's
I was just thinking that the prancing pony.
let's pick a fantastical D&D creature and then describe it in one word, and that'll be our tavern name.
Okay, okay. My immediate thought was beholder.
The Blind Beholder.
I was just thinking something similar. I was going to go with the eyeless beholder. That's great. The blind beholder. That's fantastic.
And then for the orphanage, the orphanage can be directly related to a temple or a church,
Yeah.
right? If it's going to be run by the locals who take care of the orphans, or it can be sponsored by the government in power, right? It like again, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It can just be the haven.
No, it does. Yeah, I like that. What are the main occupants? The main occupants before any Fae started coming were fishermen's kids. We decided. I'm thinking it'd be
What is like sea like they call it the flotsam or jetsam
or just a school because there's a school of fish, and I mean they would be learning there. I mean, was just a random thought I had all of a sudden.
there should be other schools around though, so you can't just call it
Yeah,
the school,
yeah,
but the something school, right?
yeah, absolutely. It was just a thought.
No, 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 I like it, but we're missing a word.
Yeah.
What about
Wow. How mean it would be to call it the lonesome school?
what hold on, because it's here's the word adrift. This
Oh yeah, there it is. That's nice.
Yeah, because it's both lost, but it's
Yeah,
also water
yeah, I
themed,
like it.
right? So the adrift school doesn't flow, but I like it. The adrift, the school adrift.
School adrift. Yeah,
Do we like that?
I like it. Yeah. And then And then if we like want to put the fade to it, we can just change it later. I think it doesn't have to be any odder than it necessarily has to be.
All right. So what this does now is this brings us to our NPCs, and we have quite a few of them to go through. The good news is this is going to be a whole lot easier. When it comes to naming people, I usually require a name to serve 3 of 4 functions. It needs to be easily recognizable or memorable if they're meant to be a main NPC. Otherwise, they're just going to fade into the background.
Yeah.
It should kind of paint a picture of their personality sometimes through juxtaposition, like a tall guy named Tiny, right? Can be a way that you will remember this character. But it doesn't have to necessarily be that. It might not necessarily show through the words themselves, but more of the language, the feel of the letters, and the combination of the sounds that might give you an idea of who they are. For example, when I was doing NPCs with Scott a couple of these episodes ago, we came up with a pixie named Pickles. And that Pickles really is a great name for a pixie, but it has nothing to do with describing literally the personality, but you really do get a feel for the kind of character, Pickles the Pixies. It should usually reflect their cultural background, kind of like where they were raised. And it should be easily shortened by the players without pulling focus. Like, I was thinking about some names that I would never, ever, ever name a character in D&D, like Sheriff Dickens, or Mayor Cockburn, Gaylord Smith, or Knuckles the Ogre. These are all going to end up as joke names, whether you like it or not. Their players are going to go completely off the rails with it. So I think the most important thing to look at to start off with is the Duke, because this is someone that we're going to be dealing with pretty regularly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the question I'm going to keep asking over and over again is race and gender.
I think what would be funny to do with this Duke is make him a half elf.
Okay.
Because it is the two worlds meeting at the border where the two worlds would be meeting.
Male, clearly.
Male, yeah.
Are we going to give him a family?
I think at least a wife.
Okay.
Or husband, whichever wants. I'm gonna go with a wife in this case.
Sure. And is she human, elf, half elf, or something else?
I think she would be human.
All right. He needs a name. Was he raised among humans or raised among elves?
He was raised among humans, so he would have an elven name according to the naming conventions of half elves, if I remember correctly.
It doesn't have to be, because you're homebrewing it yourself, right?
Yeah, I mean, I always like that. I like that aspect of the half elves.
All right.
Like a lot of the Forgotten Realms lore, I really do like, and I put into my own world.
It's popular for a reason, right?
Yeah, I've always, I mean, my immediate thought went to a character I've made, but that's a character I've already made.
Have your players met this character?
No, I don't believe they have. I've probably mentioned him, but it isn't. No, I have talked about the character, but I never said the name.
Well,
so
do you want to use it here, or do you want to save it for something else?
I would like to use it because because of the scenarios. Because I named him Phelan.
Oh, I like that. Spell it.
Yeah. Hold on, give me a second. I don't remember how the fuck I spelled that.
No. Just spell it right now. Right. How does it feel in your head?
Faelyn.
Lyn.
Yeah.
We're gonna give him a last name?
A last name? Oh boy. I can't think of one off the top of my head.
So for nobility, what I like to do is look for strong sounding names that don't end on a weak syllable. And they usually start off with some, like, it's 1 or 2 or 3 syllables that are strong sounding syllables that are all the way through the word. There's no like falling off at the end of the word.
Yeah.
I look at trying to come up with a good example of a name that does that. Archibald is a name that hits on both the first and the last syllable, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't fade away like Cornelius fades away at the end of it, right?
Yeah. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
So for nobility, I like to make sure that I'm hitting with solid syllables. So I would have something like I've got a character that my players absolutely love. We can reuse this. It's a fake name. We can use it here. He is a half elf, and his name is Irvindale because
Yeah.
it's a strong sounding name, and he's clearly nobility, right? You don't have a street urchin named Irvindale.
No,
So, is there something that's gonna jump out to you that you want to focus on? Do you want it to be humanish or elvish?
I'm thinking humanish because we're in a human kingdom. Like he would have a first elven name, like trying to tie in that he is half an elf, so he would have both. There's nothing jumping at me at the moment.
Okay, so this is where we get a little bit sneaky. And we're going to do a Google search. Medieval surnames. A lot of them are like Smith, Wright, Fletcher, Knight, Cook, Squire, Taylor, Turner, kind of that shit.
Yeah.
But that is when we end up with particularly British. So the top 100 medieval last names from around Europe. Benedict, Wainwright, Maynard, Kimball, Bassett, Wallace. You see how they're all like they're stronger names. Hammond,
Yeah.
Moreland, Aldrich.
Mordrich, I like that.
About what did you say? You liked Aldrich?
Yeah, I did like that a lot. Sorry.
I'm just going to type it in. Let's not spend any additional time
Yeah.
on this. Phelan Aldrich.
Yeah.
We need a human woman's name, but we will come back to that in a minute. So
Yeah.
here's what we're doing because we're going to deal with a lot of we've got a list of names that we're going to come up with here. We've got 1 second. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. We've got well over 50 names to come up with.
Jesus.
Right. So before you get panicked, remember, most of them don't need last names.
It's true. It's true.
Right. What we're going to do is we're going to prep last names in other future campaign prep, right?
Yeah.
Or we're going to figure out what are the primary families, when do we want to be able to add a specific last name to it. But for the most part, these are going to be first names or they're going to be known by their last names. I assume that the jailer in the dungeon will just go by his last names of like Stricken or something, right? Like it's going to be something like that, and that's what everybody's just going to call him, right?
Yeah, I like that.
So I'm actually going to write that in because Stricken is a great jailer name. I was just making noises and I came up with a word.
That's what words are, made up noises.
Pretty much. So here's the idea. First and foremost, we have Goliaths. This is how I populate a town, okay? We have humans, because it's a human city in a human kingdom. Then we have Goliaths, half-elves, sea elves, and goblins. And then we have other.
Yeah, I forgot we had goblins. I won't lie to you. Goblins, yeah.
For example, one of the others, we've already named two others that were a hag and a gnome, right? So what percentage is going to be humans? Just give me like a ratio. It doesn't matter.
We'll say 40.
Okay. Goliaths who's the next most populous? Goliaths or half elves or sea elves?
I'm thinking Goliath's next most.
Sure. What's the ratio on that? Don't do the math. I'll do the math. Just what feels right.
Okay. I like okay. I hope because I can say random numbers. Do you want it in tens or is it just any number good?
Any number.
Okay, just making sure because so let's say 27.
Sure. Half elves.
Half elves. Ooh, let's go with like 13.
Sea elves.
9.
Goblins.
Say 6.
So what we've done now is we've come up with a list. I'm going to tally that up. 40 plus 27. Actually, 27 plus 13 is also 40. So 40 plus 40 is 80. 9 plus 6 is 15. So that brings up to 95%. So there's 5% other.
Yeah, I like that. That was exactly what I was going to do as well. Have just miscellaneous or other. Miscellaneous, yeah, other. That's a better word for it.
So when we are looking at our population breakdown, you came up with the percentages. And then what I did was I counted there are 61 NPCs on the list. So we're going to make this real simple, real easy.
Yeah.
And what kind of percentage do you want to have for the gender male, female, or neither? Like it won't matter for a kobold, right?
Right. Yeah. I think 49-51 male, female. No, let's put other. Let's be progressive, shall we?
Sure.
I'm not very used to being progressive. I'm really sorry. I'm learning. um, I mean, we could go 45 for no 46, 44 with male and female, and then 10% other.
Sure.
I think. I think that's healthy and progressive of me.
Absolutely.
I'm really sorry, internet. I am from the country in Iceland. I'm out of the. I am not very good at this. I'm learning.
As far as others goes, Goliaths and humans tend to be fairly binary male female, though they really don't
Yeah.
have to be. But it seems like elves and some other creatures will
Yes.
definitely be more androgynous, let's say, right?
Yeah.
Or non-binary or gender fluid. So
Absolutely.
I'm just gonna put it in as undefined now, and then
Yeah.
as it comes up, we can make the call at the time about where on the I don't want to say spectrum, that means something else these days, but where these people are gonna fit in. So
Yeah.
what I am going to do is tell you that we're going to have, of our list of 61 intelligent creatures, we're going to have 24 humans, 16 Goliaths, 8 half elves, 5 sea
Okay.
elves, 4 goblins, and 4 other.
I like it. I like it. I like it.
So we already have 1 half elf and 1 human. We already have 2 of the others. We have a male gnome and we have a hag, right? So let's just totally get rid of the goblins right off the bat. We said they're the organized crime, right?
Yes, we did.
We have goblins. We have 4 underlings and a boss. Let's make it 4 goblins and a bugbear.
Yeah, I like that. Simple.
I'm going to do a female bugbear is going to lead everybody because that's going to be more fun, I think. 2 male goblins, 1 female goblin, and a undefined goblin.
Yeah, I like that.
All right. So
A good healthy mix.
we have dealt with them. The bugbear sits at an other, so we've got there will be other people around, but these are just the ones we're naming.
Yeah.
I want you to look at the list of knights, town guards, tavern staff, patrons,
Yes. Yeah.
all this stuff. We know that 3 of them are going to be changelings, so that's going to skew our numbers. I'm going to take that. I'm going to take 1 off of the half elves, 1 off of the Goliaths, and 1 off of the humans.
Are we gonna with the changelings? They want to fit in, right? They're not gonna reveal that they're changelings, right? I'm just making sure on that.
Well, they were wandering in, like everybody knows that they're changelings because they would have wandered in.
Yeah, the locals would know, but would our players know?
Oh, potentially not, unless you want them to follow that as a clue to a mystery to find the Fey portal, and this is their way in, right?
Yeah.
I'm also going to say that changelings will be undefined. They're not going to be male or female.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I absolutely. I've played a changeling and I've done that. That was fun.
Cool. So that means that we've got 1 more playable race that's not on the list here. Is there anything that sticks out to you out of all of them that says, hey, this guy really feels like he should be this? If we had a mason, it makes sense that that's a dwarf, right?
Yeah.
Like if you look at the list, what's 1 more unique one?
So we filled goldsmith, right? Why not just go very? I'm thinking a playable race that's really thrown out to me is I have 2 in my head. It's Dragonborn and Tiefling. I'm thinking either or.
Sure.
Just not sure where. I'm not sure where I would throw them in.
A Dragonborn that runs the auction house.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. Make it a fantastic, more fantastical creature that's running a fantastical place, a mystical place. I like that. Yeah, make it we can stick with the theme of dragons, weapons, bronze dragonborn.
Sure. Do you care, male or female?
I do not. Either or is very good by me.
I'm gonna say male just because I have a feeling like he's gonna get robbed, and I don't particularly want a damsel in distress for this.
Oh yeah, that's good.
All right, so we've done goblins and we've checked off all of the others. Where would our sea elves be?
where the sea elves be?
We get to slot 5 of them in. I'm gonna say that we're gonna definitely be able to talk to one of them as a bathhouse employee and one of
Yeah.
them as a bathhouse patron.
Absolutely. That's also what I was thinking. I'm thinking we could probably throw one in the vendor and being a fishmonger. Potentially, we could throw one in at the town guard and have him at the port at all times.
Sure. Yep.
And then,
What about one of the prisoners? Because that's a unique problem that they would have to put up with.
yeah,
Like a sea elf that needs to be wet every so often, that has to be
yeah,
submerged, right? That's something that the jail has to deal with.
yeah. I like that. I like that.
Okay, so we slotted the 5. I'm going to go 2 male and 2 female and 1 undefined, completely
Yep.
at random. I'm actually going to put in female, male, undefined, female, male, just in order on our list, because they're going to run into them at different times, and it's not going to, the order that we do this in does not matter. That's part of the great thing about having a list that gets named, is you can really go out of your way to lump them all together on your list, and then but your players will never learn that, right? They'll never see it. So we wanted a fishmonger, you said,
Yes.
which is good, because that was going to be one of the questions I had later. So that's the sea elves. We have 7 half elves to slot in, but before we do that, because half elves can really be anywhere, we have 15 Goliaths on our list.
Yeah.
Where do you think we're going to find our Goliaths?
On our list, I'm thinking immediately. I'm throwing one into a philosopher.
Oh, one of the sea elves should be a philosopher.
Yeah, he should. He should. Wouldn't shouldn't he?
And
that's the two. That's the two really different out of their races, huh?
yeah, I feel like if there's going to be like the meeting of minds that we have here, it should be Goliath, a sea elf, and a human, right?
Yeah, those should really be the notable ones.
I am randomly assigning genders to them,
Yeah.
unless you've got a particular idea one way or the other. I'm also going to steal one of the humans away.
Yeah.
Because we needed another sea elf. So we've got 1 Goliath. We get to place 14 more. Now for the Cartwright, I had a family potentially set aside.
Yeah.
Did you want to make them all Goliaths?
That could be interesting because they could make carts that are sturdy enough for mountain passes and such.
Cool. And put it as a female Goliath. And then she is going to have a spouse or live with a brother or lives with an aunt. Like, it doesn't have to necessarily be a couple, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm going to put in 3 children.
Yeah, I like that.
What do you want the family member that's not one of the children to be?
I'm thinking brother, make it like a more of a family business, like that they have that has passed down and they're running it together, or a sibling. Let's just a sibling maybe. I'm not.
Let's go brother.
Yeah.
Okay. That gives us 6 Goliaths out of the 15 that we need. There's 9 more. We've got tavern patrons. We can throw a drunken Goliath in there.
Of course.
We've got a bathhouse employee. We can put a sexy Goliath or a bathhouse patron, sexy Goliath in there.
Absolutely.
We can do town guard.
Yeah,
Maybe 2 Goliaths there.
Yeah, make them be at the poor district maybe, because there's more organized crime there, so they need a bit more muscle perhaps.
All right. And then what about a prisoner?
I mean, the classic just there was I mean, yeah, I would like one as a prisoner actually. That would be interesting, trying to hold a Goliath in a probably human centered, like built around.
Yeah. We have 11 so far. We need a couple more. Do we want another vendor?
Yeah. Ooh, what would he? I'm thinking like furs and stuff. He would be he'd be a vendor of furs.
Furs and pelts.
Yeah, like he would sell the rest to a butcher. I mean, that's not on the list, but just to have that open in the air. Then he would sell the pelts of foxes, goats, whatever, really.
Cool. I threw on here, I've got the scribe. I also have a couple of advocates for the courthouse, because I feel like we have a courthouse. We're going to see the courthouse. So there should be a couple of lawyers or advocates or something there, judges, whatever. it might be good to have, because Goliaths are so sport and athleticism and whatnot, that maybe the trials they have are based on feats of strength and agility and whatnot. So they've got a different legal system for
Yes.
Goliaths. So maybe having one of the advocates be a Goliath.
Yeah, I mean, I remember what Goliaths are very much about. They're just their whole thing is survival of the fittest, fighting to prove yourself, whatever.
Yeah.
I assume that their judicial system would be very much wow, I'm blanking all of a sudden. What trial by combat? There it is. Oh my god.
Yeah. I
It would be
also
very much
remembered,
like that.
I also just remember that we have a halfling and a furbolg that are bakers.
Yeah,
So I have slotted them in. I've added a couple more others, and I've taken away
that's perfect
one
enough.
Goliath and one half elf.
Yep.
All right. So this brings us to, we've got a pretty solid list of people here. How many Goliaths do we have? One, that's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so there's 12. We could have two of them be innkeepers.
Yeah. One of them could be a tavern staff or slash owner of the Blind Beholder.
Actually, yeah, let's have it be like a married couple that runs the place and nobody
Yeah.
fucks about because they're Goliaths.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, anybody decides to try a bar fight, they're getting thrown out immediately.
Yeah, pretty much. So, okay, that's the Goliaths done because we got 14 of them. We have to do 6 half elves. Anything sticking out?
I'm thinking at least one half of us a knight, at least.
Okay.
Given that the Duke is a knight.
Yeah.
No, the Duke is a half of what the fuck am I on about, honestly?
No, no,
How
I knew what you were saying. He was probably a knight at one point.
Oh yeah, probably. I mean, maybe that's why this order of knights followed him. They are he was the leader, and now it's become a duke. They just followed him around,
Mhm.
stuck with their own.
Do we want to put the orphanage caretaker?
Yes, yes, make an outlier. That's not the right word. Make a half elf. I am really bad with words. Okay.
Well, it's all right. We would have half elves would probably be the right move for another lawyer that can straddle kind of both the sea elf and the human.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I mean, isn't that based in their Forgotten Realms lore? They are the two worlds. They are.
Yeah.
That's. I remember I've picked half elves because of that lore. Then being a bard, like being that diplomat of two worlds.
Mm-hmm. We had our male gnome. I put in with a family question mark, but it doesn't have to be with another gnome. It could be with a half elf
Yeah, I'm thinking that as well.
or a human.
Like, yeah, I'm thinking maybe half elf because of just
What about
longevity's sake.
what about a male? Like they'd be a
Ooh,
happily married gay couple that are goldsmiths.
I like that.
This gives me how many half elves now? I believe that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We need one more. Want to just do woodcarver or
Yeah.
scribe?
Scribe. I like that. Make it a scribe.
Alrighty, that's the half elf. So everyone else is a human, and I'm just going to, and here's the great part, I'm just going to slot them in male, female.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not gonna overthink it. Every other one is going to be male or female because we've already put in a lot of undefined already.
Yeah.
So
And of course, if anybody who is listening wants to make it more other and such, they can. I mean, this is just us.
oh, of course. Yep. By just randomly going male, female, our doctor is a woman, which is cool.
I like that.
Yep. We end up with female human in jail.
I mean, hey, you never know what could happen.
Woodcarver is a woman.
Right?
One of our vendors. All right. And so then male human. This may feel a little boring, but this is honestly the best way to populate a city, right? Is to just start filling in blanks and see where you go.
Yeah. And this is maybe for me and maybe others. This formula could be used for any town, right, or anything, and you could just make it bigger if it's a big city. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as the population sizes and ratios make sense for you, right?
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I'm just making sure because I'm definitely stealing this formula to make more towns and cities.
So the last thing that we need to do is actually apply names to all of them.
All right.
Now, instead of us listing out a shit ton of names and going, do we like this? Do we like that? Let's just cross off the ones that make a lot of sense and then
Okay.
understand that we're going to do Goliath names here, the ones that we like out of Goliath names, and elf names here. And this is how we would name them as we go.
Yeah.
But there's some that we can focus on right away.
Yeah.
The very first thing that we have is our knights. There, I've got a female half elf, a male human, and a female human.
Nice. I like it.
Yep. They are going to all be known as Sir and Lady.
Yes. Um,
And
I mean, I feel like this could also be interesting. Are we going to make it that they're knights because of royalty or because of that what they have done? Because you can only be back in old England, if you will. You had to be royalty to be as such. Like this is this. I feel like this is a relative question. Like, are they all nobility, or is it because of the deeds that they have done that have become knights?
well, I would say that for the sheer amount of knights that you have here,
Mhm.
there would be, because you're going to need, what, a dozen of them? That's a
Yeah.
lot of nobility to just come
Yeah,
in and get posted at
exactly.
a city. So they will be of noble houses, maybe, but maybe they have earned their ability to be a noble house and to be
Yeah,
given lands based on the
yeah,
deeds that they have done themselves. If they're
yeah,
all part of the Order of the Winter Sheath, they would have had to have earned that.
yeah, absolutely.
So when it comes to their names, it is time to go to the Google machine. And here's how we do it. We type in Old English names for girls, and then we click on the link that we like the best. Abigail, Agatha, Bridget. So here's where we're going to make it our own, okay? As we go through, we're going to go, oh, I like that name. That's good enough. We've got so many names to go through. There are going to be 11 human females, and we're going to do this for the half elves as well. Is we're going to say I like that name, and then we're going to change one letter in it
Oh yeah, okay, I like that.
to make it fantasy. All right.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to start listing off. I've got like I think 100 names or something. I've got 100 names. I'm just going to go jump around the list here because I've got a bunch of scrolling to do because every one of them is a paragraph of information. Abigail,
Yeah.
Agatha, Agnes. You stop me when you hear one.
Okay.
Bridget, Dorothy, Edna, Eileen, Eleanor.
Ooh, Eileen. I like Eileen.
All right. Eileen, let's change one letter in it.
How do you write Eileen? I don't. I mean, I don't know how this is spelled.
Eileen.
Eileen.
Let's change the last letter to a J because Eilish sounds
Eileen.
fantasy.
I can. Yeah, I can see that.
Or we can add a letter to the beginning if you wanted it to start with an L or an M or something, right? Like Mylene or something.
Yeah, I'm getting a personal opinion from my girlfriend real quick. Hold on. She has a way to write it. She wrote it. So you said it starts with an E, right?
Yep.
She likes from with an A, starting with an A. So it would.
That is an alternate spelling for it. Yeah, absolutely. We could just do it with an A.
Yeah, I like that. I might be biased because my girlfriend came up with it. To be honest.
Sure. All right. I'm gonna grab another couple so that we can go through this process a couple of times. So Gertrude, Jillian, Gladys, Hilda, Irene, Iris, Marjorie, Mildred, Suzanne, Blanche. These ones are going to be more uncommon.
Yeah.
Elspeth, Gretchen, Lorraine, Mabel,
I
Maeve,
I like Elspeth.
Elspeth.
Yeah.
We probably don't need to change anything on that. That's good enough.
No, yeah. I think as is absolutely.
Let's pick one more random human woman's name.
Yeah.
I jumped way down the list. Marlena, Priscilla, Rowena, Sabrina, Sonia, Tamara, Winona, and we get cute old-fashioned girl names. Annette, Ada, Clara, Darcy, Doretta, Edwina, Georgina, Henrietta, Matilda, Nancy, Mona, Odette, Pearl, Shirley, Stacy, hitting the end of the alphabet here. Uh, uh,
I liked Pearl, to be honest. It's
Pearl.
nice and simple.
All right. Let's use that. I like that for one of our human orphans.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because oysters have pearls. Here you go.
Yep. At this point, we grab. I typed in uncommon English surnames,
Okay, I like it.
and I am just going to start to grab some off the list. This
Yeah.
includes Fernsby. So,
Okay,
Lady Eileen Fernsby.
I like that.
There's going to be some in here that I'm just going to skip, like Relish is just not a name I'm going to grab. But Berrycloth, Lady
Berry
Elspeth
cloth.
Berrycloth.
Berry cloth.
You see how all I'm
That's
doing is just Culpepper is another one. Poor little Pearl Culpepper was orphaned when her father died at sea. All I'm doing is
I
just
like it.
grabbing off of the internet, but I'm searching for specific things that I'm looking for
Right.
here.
Yeah.
When we want to obfuscate this a little bit more, I'm trying to grab words that have proper nouns in them. Fernsby says fern. Berry cloth, clearly two nouns. Culpepper has the word pepper, also the word cull if you were talking about like culling the herd, right?
Jesus Christ.
But what I can do here is when I say, you know what, I'm not wild about it, I don't really like it, I have somewhere to go from there. Culpepper can end up being cull salt, and I'll call it cull salt.
Hmm.
Right? Or I
Yeah.
can translate pepper or berry or fern or whatnot into another language,
Oh, okay. Okay.
right? So what I'm looking for here is just stuff that has, I got another one, bird whistle, apparently, was the last name. And I think that's great for the doctor.
Yeah,
Bird whistle.
that is even though it is a last name, that is an odd last name.
Very, very odd. But we can change this to be what is a bird whistle? Pigeon's coo. It could just be Dr. Coo, right?
Oh yeah.
Um, or if we're getting particularly inspired by this, we could say, hey, you know what? We can give it a different name and make this an Aarakocra because I'm thinking about a bird now, right? This is where I start with my NPCs. I just slot in whatever words I can find and then say, what does
Okay.
this make me think of?
This
And
is fantastic.
90% of the time, it's good the way it is. I don't put any thought into it. I randomly grab it and I go, this is random enough that it feels like it was specific choices.
Yeah.
When they come up to talk to Lady Eileen Fernsby, who is standing there with her gleaming shield, she's part of the Order of the Winter Sheath, and she is guarding the Mithril Gate.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
All
Jesus
of this
Christ.
feels so deliberate.
Yeah.
But clearly we were making it up as we go, right? Like
Absolutely.
just randomized shit. But the other thing that I'm doing here, because we've got Dr. Birdwhistle now. Maybe Dr. Birdwhistle, I've got two family members here for Dr. Birdwhistle,
Yeah.
a male and a female.
Okay.
I'm going to make the male a husband because we don't have a romance except for the Duke. And then they've got a little girl, right?
Okay. I like that. Yeah.
So their last names are all going to be Birdwhistle. Right? When I came up with, or when I'm going to sit down to come up with the name for the husband, I'm going to take a common English name like Robert. I'm going to change one letter. The B will become a G. Now he's Rogert, right? It's a little bit like a real word or like a real name. And that's going to be good enough. And now I've got Rogert Birdwhistle.
That is such a simple, easy way, but it's also such an interesting way to do it. It is so wow.
I'm going to grab the daughter's name is going to be Penelope,
That.
but I'm going to change the I don't know, pick a letter. I'm going to change the first P to an H, and
Yeah.
everyone's going to call her Henny, and now her name is Henny Birdwhistle.
And now because hen are bam our cookers, like you said before, Jesus, the dots are connecting. Oh my god.
Right, you will find that there are bits and pieces that fit and bits and
Wow.
pieces that don't fit. Because if we changed Robert to Bobbert instead of Rogert, Bobbert sounds like maybe he's a little bit more bumbling, maybe he's a fool, maybe the doc is with him because she loves him, but she can't really fucking stand him. And that is enough character development that I have that I've thought about briefly in passing. And when they ever interact with them as a family, this is now something that is going to be in an extra detail based on the fact that I changed a different letter in the name. Whereas,
Wow.
right? And so this is where I come up with my naming conventions.
This is, if I would have known this like a year ago, do you know how simpler making a campaign would have been?
I'm not kidding. Sitting down with the spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet has as job, first name, last name, gender, race, and then at the end, age. We're not going to do age
Wow.
today. There's no point. You are going to know what feels good as you go. Just make
Yeah,
sure you
exactly.
smatter around enough elderly because a lot of people forget to do that.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
when it comes to, all right, so here's a difference that I'm going to have. We've got a male Goliath who is selling furs and pelts.
Yeah.
Goliaths all have crazy names. Here's my secret for Goliath, which is phenomenal. Your characters or your player characters have probably looked up, oh, Goliath names on a random name generator and come up with whatever nonsense, right?
Yeah.
If you have access to Volos, which is no longer in print, they actually list out the names, like a bunch of Goliath names.
I do indeed have Olos.
So Aachen, Eglith, Gothak, Illican, these are all the birth names, but then they all get
Yeah.
clan names as well,
Yeah.
like Vaime Laga, but then they get nicknames like Root Smasher, Horn Carver, Keen Eye.
Absolutely.
You don't need to populate them all. Just what are the players going to call them?
Yeah. Well,
Right.
Arkan, the first one, is out of the question. I've had a character named that, so that's out of the question.
Sure, but if I'm going to sit down and have the bartender, for example, let's actually pull a real one that we said we were going to do. Yeah, the tavern staff. So the bartender is a male Goliath.
Yeah.
If I'm going to have the bartender be there, he is going to be known as Pavu Thuligia. That's going to be his name, and everyone's going to call him Pavu.
Yeah.
But when we go out into the wilds and we start dealing with the tribes, we're going to start dealing with the actual tribal nicknames that they're given, that they're earned. The Goliaths that live in town have not earned that yet, right? Because they live in town. So they have their birth name and maybe their clan name, but they won't have an earned nickname. When it comes to the nicknames, now we go out and we go to whatever the tribe is that we came up to, and we have Thread Twister or Skywatcher and like Chief Skywatcher, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a different cultural touchstone, and this is why we're going to have different kinds of Goliath names as well. Maybe there will be some Goliaths in town that actually do have nicknames that have then left the tribe to join the city. What does that mean? Do they carry a shame with that? Does that mean that they are just elderly and settling down? Otherwise, they'd be left behind. Or were their parents like, hey, you know what? We're going to move here. You're coming with us, right? What does it mean to be a Goliath that is not a nomad up in the mountains?
Yeah.
Well, one of them is going to end up being a town guard, right? So there's some honor in that. I'm here as a protector, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have access to Volos, the player's companion to the elemental evil, the Prince of the Apocalypse, is a free PDF online, which also has all of the names that are listed in it. So
does it? Oh, I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, it gave us a number of races. The first time we saw them, like the Deep Gnomes and the Aarakocra, are printed there for the first time. Genasi as well, I think.
Okay, that's interesting.
So when it comes to sea elves, you're going to run into some problems with the idea that you're just going to get elven names most of the time.
Yeah.
Wherever you look. So the way to differentiate them from the other elves is to give them a specific last name.
Okay.
And the last name should be something ocean, like, and it might just be like of the pink reef or or salt flower or something, right? Still elvish, but it's of the sea. So whatever Leilowin, right, which is the first name of a female elf, Leilowin Saltflower. Here is your sea elf. For half elves,
it's simple, but it's good. Okay, I like it. Wow, that learning so much.
When we think about the races themselves, we think about what their stereotype is. Like for gnomes, the stereotype is that they are mischievous, they are curious, they are a little bit fey, a little bit magical, a little bit elvish, right? So I'm thinking nature-sounding names, whereas halflings are more civilization-based. So when I'm naming gnomes, I'm thinking things like root twiddler, right? Like will be a last name. That's a gnome. A halfling is going to be wine guzzler as a last name, right? Because that's civilization.
Yeah.
But
Okay. Okay.
and so we start to think about what roles they're fitting. Dwarves are clear because it's all pipes and brewing and
Yeah.
fire and rock and stone and gem and
Rock and stone. Yeah.
right. It's all cutters and choppers and stuff, right? Whereas elves are very flowery. So when we start to look at
Yeah.
some of the other races, we can look at, hey, I wanted a genasi. He's going to be a fire genasi. His name's Blaze. It's easy. I'm moving
Yeah.
on. I'm not doing any.
Yeah. Exactly.
But if I've got 4 or 5 of them, I've got to start thinking, okay, I've got Blaze and Ember and Char, and like I've got all of these names, but there's a finite number of those names. So these might be the nicknames that they have, and I will give them regular human names, right? Or celestial or elvish or something if I want to feel them, or I want them to feel them more fantastical and exotic.
Yeah. I mean, I remember one of my players, because you mentioned elven names are very flowery. I remember one of my players, she named her last name was Blethlena, which is in Gaelic, in Irish Gaelic, if you translate it to English, it means wildflower.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love that. There's
Gaelic
so
is a
many.
fantastic thing. I look at, for example, wood elves. They are Gaelic to a fault. Like forest elves or wood elves, sorry, are just Gaelic to a fault. Like absolutely. And I look at high elves to be more of the British sort. They have more, but of course still have elegant names. They don't have Smith as a last name.
When I sit down and look at them, and I've run through the gamut of what I can find online, when I can't figure out what to do with this anymore, I start to sit down and think about other languages.
Yeah.
And for me, Tritons are Greek,
Oh yeah, I can see that. Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And so I will head in that direction. So are satyrs, right? And
Yeah.
so, but satyrs, I will go for a rounder sound than tritons if I have them both in the same like story in the same region. So the
Yeah.
tritons will be more I's and E's, and the satyrs will be more A's and O's,
Yeah, I
right?
can see satyrs being Roman as well because of fawns.
Yeah.
Like the jump isn't too far to make.
The problem is
Uh,
there's so many things that are Fey-like that you end up
yeah,
very quickly running out of European languages, right?
absolutely.
Though I just want to say this. There are some absolutely beautiful names in South America and in
Yeah,
Africa in
absolutely.
languages, and not just like names of people, but names of items and like proper names and whatnot. You
Yeah,
will be able to find some beautiful words there that you should fill in the
yeah,
gaps in your naming convention.
absolutely.
Remember, nicknames are going to be a thing. Dr. Birdwhistle might just go as Birdie to everyone in town.
Yeah, absolutely.
When we're dealing with the thugs, we've got a boss who's a female bugbear, but I bet she's got a nickname for every one of the other 4 goblin underlings,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So one of the things that we like to do is populate with groups. You'll notice that we have 3 knights, 4 town guards, 3 philosophers, and so we're getting into groups. We base it first off of the race, and then we look at the
Yeah,
gender. But then we can also, like, if we're looking at the woodcarver, or sorry, the cartwright, who's there with her brother and 3 children, I only have to come up with one last name. And the moment that I do that and I start writing down, okay, so it's an older sister, a middle brother, and a younger sister. What is their relationship really quickly? And who does the mother have a soft spot for? Who does the uncle have a soft spot for? When I start to come
yeah,
up with these decisions as I go, these are just choices I'm making while I'm typing out the name. Or I'm thinking, hey, this guy's going to be a bit of a dick. I need a name that's going to be fun to spit that out. It's going to have harder name or harder sounds to it. K's
yeah,
and G's and things, which
yeah,
are
yeah.
more fun to.
More consonant than vowels.
Yeah, but it's not just consonant to vowels. You have a lot of I think about it, can you hold the letter or can you not? For example, I can
Yeah,
hold an L. I go L as long as I want,
yeah,
or M or W. These are softer sounds.
yeah,
G, where you got a G, or B, D, P. these are harder sounds. K,
I see. I see.
right? And so my bad guys have harder sounds. My good guys have softer sounds.
Interesting.
Like Phelan. That's a good guy name. That's not a bad guy name.
Absolutely. Oh my God.
Right. And so our knights, we wanted them to be good guys. They
Yeah.
are Eileen, Elspeth, right? These are good guy names. So there's a lot of your NPCs are going to be neutral, but you
Yeah.
yourself will know whether or not you want their party to be at odds with them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you'll be able to. I already know that of the two bakers, just based on what we named, there's the Sweeter Teeth, which is a furbolg, and Spitwhistle Sweets. Spitwhistle the halfling is a piece of shit.
Absolutely. This
Just
guy is a
based on the name.
scumbag.
Yeah,
He's a
just based on the name
scumbag.
alone. And we've got to think about that kind of headspace when we are coming up with our
Spitzmizzle
naming.
Sweets, he claims that he has the original recipe, but he doesn't. He really doesn't. He's stealing it all, but he just I don't know how, but he just gets it. You
The,
know, he just
we didn't name our Furbolg,
it's
but her
true.
main complaint is that little bastard steals my recipes and just adds more sugar.
Yeah, that's actually fantastic. Just makes it sweeter. Just
Yeah.
because people will get hooked like this because sugar is addictive and such.
Nobody really remembers anymore. I mean, they can if you remind them, but nobody really remembers that when he started off, it was Spitwhistle Savory, and
Yeah,
now it's Spitwhistle Sweets because you could sell
yeah,
more, right? That kind of shit.
absolutely.
So, and it's just based off the names that we have that we're looking at. We know that there is a reef that exists out there that is teeming with life because
Yeah.
it's the Garden of Plenty.
Yeah,
That's it. I can now, in my head, picture what this looks like, surrounded by tropical fish and sea elves underwater, and right,
absolutely.
it's all built.
It's looking like the Great Coral Reefs in Australia. Like it is just so full of life.
I want to be really clear when it comes to writing. Naming things should be the last step.
Yeah,
As a matter of fact, it's also the last step when it comes to when we title our episodes. When I build the breakdowns for the episodes, and most of them are jokes or puns or rhymes or something, I build the whole episode first and I leave it sitting in a folder that nobody else can see. And I stare at it and I hate it as I'm trying desperately to come up with a good fucking name for it. And you can tell which ones I couldn't come up with a name for because there was the last step and I just kind of gave up. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't tell you the quality of the episode.
yeah.
It's just is the name fun.
I mean,
It's
you
the
can tell where you
same.
had fun with names as well. For example, what was it? The plants episode. Where you I
Yeah,
believe it was that one. It was just pun after pun after pun after pun.
yeah. Sometimes I'm inspired, but a lot of the times I'm not, and every once in a while it gets. I've got to come back to it, or it gets phoned in a little bit, and clearly people can tell which ones are which.
Yeah,
It's going to be the same thing with naming conventions in Dungeons and Dragons. However, if you were at the very beginning of your campaign, or you're just going into a new region, you're meeting a new populace, you've gone to a new kingdom, whatever it is, and it's time to sit down and name a bunch of shit.
yeah,
It should be one of the last things you do, but sometimes it can actually inform the direction of the story or the character of the NPC, what their characteristics are.
yeah.
So I guess that's kind of my last big thing here, because nobody wants to hear me sit down and talk about 14 or whatever different Goliath names, right? So we have this long ass list of 61, and a lot of it's family members, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm going to send you this half-built list, and of course you can populate it with whatever else you want,
That's
right?
fantastic.
So, and I'm going to send it to you as a spreadsheet. I'm not going to give you a PDF, just so you can go like right in and fuck with it. It's all yours. So,
I love it. I love that.
uh, but when I'm looking at this, I can see now that the woman that runs the magical component shop hands out apples
Yeah,
with every transaction for free because of her name.
yeah. And it's and what? It wasn't even it wasn't even much. It's just an apple.
Yeah, yeah, it's just a
It's
fun little piece of trivia for this town, right?
yeah,
As a matter of
Absolutely.
fact, some of the destitute, there's not a whole lot of homeless, but some of them know that if they're really starving, they can go in and buy a little bit of beetroot for 2 copper pieces,
Yeah,
and they'll get a free apple with that transaction.
absolutely.
Right. And so they will be able to still their grumbling stomachs. So we have done a lot of naming and discussing names and whatnot. Do you have any questions or any final thoughts before we wrap this episode up?
No, not really. I feel like that we've kind of just covered it all. I
The one
mean,
thing that we didn't get around to is naming the bad guys.
I mean, the bad guys, like you said, that can be very on the nose. Like we talked about at the beginning with the Sith in Star Wars, it is so on the nose. If you just think about it for a second, it makes sense where it's coming from. Like
There
Darth
are,
Sidious, he is a Sidious person. Darth Nihilus, he is nothing. Darth Vader, he is the father.
yeah,
It's on the nose.
there are naming conventions already for Goliaths, elves, orcs, and dragons and fae, and these are the things that are around. It doesn't take much to go look up how to name these people.
Yeah,
I would say that for every one of the names that we come up with, like we've got all of these vendors, we should have 4 seafaring merchants. We should name a couple of ships, right?
yeah.
There are other names that need to be filled out here that we have not done. That I mean, this episode's going super long, but
Oh
the
yeah,
the
I just looked at the time. I was like, oh, it's been 3 hours already. Damn.
the green dragon, for example, I know that my green dragon is going to be named Excantalus or something like that, right? Like I'm going
Yeah,
to just be able to Parstrixelion, some big ass freaking dragon
yeah.
name.
I mean, I've come up with a nickname from just a while ago, which is the Emerald Plague or so and such.
Perfect. Right. So yeah, like I feel like we've touched on a lot of it. We've done a good amount of summary on a lot of it. But remember, if you have named 3 changeling orphans, they're going to want to go talk to another one. So have a
Yeah,
couple names just sitting there up your sleeve, ready to go. I will just grab an additional 4 random goblins because these guys are gonna just murder one of them in a back alley. That's what your party
yeah,
does. Or they're going to say,
absolutely.
I don't want to talk to that orc. I want to talk to this one over here. The Goliath patron that we have sitting in the tavern right now, he's a male Goliath. He's a drunk. We've come up with a backstory. This is his name. We've introduced him once. They don't care. They want to go
Yeah,
talk to the Goliath across the street. Well, now we need a new name.
yeah.
So I always have in ready to go 8 humans, 4 of the regular population,
Mm-hmm.
and then 2 of the rare population names
Yeah,
set aside ready to go so that I just have
absolutely.
something to lean on. And when in doubt, write down a couple of elven names because elven names can be used for half elves, genasi, Asamar. You can get the odd gnome, some fae, so like
The furbolgs because they use elven naming conventions.
Yep, you can bastardize a Goliath name, one of the nicknames like Dawn Strider, and now you have a centaur, right? Like you've got
Yeah,
all sorts of options here as long as you write out your base level ones, and that tends to be Goliaths and dwarves, orcs, goblinoids, elves, and fae.
yeah,
You should be able to find humans, clearly. You should
yeah.
be able to find a name somewhere in there. It doesn't hurt to have a couple of dragons either, because in a really desperate move, if you need kobold names, grab a syllable out of a dragon name.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now, like, if the most dragon names are 5 syllables long, now you have 5 kobold names. You're good to go.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot more to your list, to your breakdown that we didn't get to because this episode has gone for super long. I
It's
mean,
not so
but
much a timing thing as it is. I just feel like we're going to repeat ourselves over and over again.
yeah, absolutely. I think that as well. But I also do kind of believe it is kind of a shame we didn't get into like a dragon naming breakdown. But honestly, Fizzban's hat is pretty good for that. You can get some.
Fizzbands is good. We've talked about dragon names on the
Yeah,
podcast before. We did it like the dragon intro episode way
yeah.
back in the day. But really quickly, you know what? It's worth pointing out. Let's wrap up on dragon names
Okay.
because it's in the title of the damn game, right?
It's half of the name.
Hell, we named a dungeon. We might as well name a dragon.
Yeah, exactly.
So the very first thing that I want to point out is that if you have fewer than 4 syllables, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah,
Every dragon has a nickname. Sometimes they've got as many as 4 nicknames,
absolutely.
depending on who they've terrorized or who they've interacted with in the past. And we're talking metallic dragons too, right? Where they're not
Yeah,
necessarily terrorizing people, but the goblins will have a nickname for the silver streak, for the silver dragon that flies overhead, right?
yeah,
Or the dryads might refer to the great benefactor, right? Everyone will
yeah,
have different names for dragons, but the proper names themselves, don't be afraid to include combinations of letters that you normally wouldn't see, right?
yeah,
Like
absolutely.
UIY is not common in
No,
English, right? But
I
having
can
that as a
imagine.
vowel sound,
Yeah,
right? Lots of hard sounding names because they're dragons. I was talking before about long sounds and short sounds.
yeah,
I use this for dragons as well. Like I say, I know Parstrixelion is a villain because Strix is a hard sounding name.
yeah,
Right in the middle. Excantalus is a villain.
yeah.
I had God, it's been a while. Sigellamore was one of them, and he was a
Oh
good guy,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Because of the softing, because of the softer ending. Yeah,
Yeah, and so that's my ruling for how I look at it. But I honestly just start grabbing combinations of letters and putting them together, of consonants and putting them
yeah,
together. I want TH, I want double L, I want an RX, right? I'm looking for these combinations, and then I'm seeing if I can find something that's a little bit odd, like having
absolutely.
one syllable end in a J and another one begin with a Z. So you'd
Yeah,
have the 2 syllables back to back. That would be like Skadzor, and that's going to be the middle two of what it is. But it sounds strange. That's not a common consonant combination. A lot of X's, Q's, J's, Z's, a lot of L's. You don't see a whole lot of F's and
no,
Y's,
no, you
right?
really don't, do you?
So go to a Scrabble board. Which ones are the highest points? Those are the letters you should be using the most often.
Yeah.
What are we looking at? We're looking at a green dragon. You have the Emerald Plague, you said?
Yeah, I've had this for in Locked and Loaded for a while because I like the because green dragons are such scumbags, like they are these smart fuckers. Because they know that an emerald dragon exists and people don't know any better. Like the common folk wouldn't know any better. They see green, they might think emerald, and then now they
Of
associate
course.
emerald with bad,
Yeah.
but they don't know that it's just the regular green.
Let's talk for a second about green dragons, okay? Their
Yes.
personality is that they are evil, they're scheming, they're conniving. They would rather win with their wits than their brawn,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So what's a sound that says sneaky, that says crafty, that says witty, that says underhanded?
Um, Weasel or any something like that. Weasel really sticks out to me like that.
All right, but we're gonna add some weird to it, okay?
Uh,
So let's
of
start with
course.
a Q or a G. These are hard sounds. Queasel or Gweasel.
Queasel. I feel like it's sharper. It's more cutting than a
It's
normal
not going to be
dragon.
spelt weasel as normal, which is Weasle. We're going to go Qweez to start off.
Yes, yes.
All right, so that's syllable number one. Or rather, the first syllable we've chosen. We don't know where in the name it's going to be yet. So the second syllable is going to be. Let's go back to the idea of evil because these guys are pure evil. They like to
Yeah,
enslave and command and whatnot. The word that sticks out to me is just being evil. Evil is kill, right?
yeah.
So I'm trying to think of other words that are absolutely malevolent, uh,
Sinister.
sinister. Is there a syllable in any of these? The vil in evil, the vol in malevolent, the sin in sinister, right?
Yeah,
Or
absolutely.
ist. Which one do you like? Which one of these evil?
I like the sin. I really do. The because it's such a sharp. When you say sinister, you. I always hear the emphasis on the sin part.
All right, so I'm gonna do SYNN.
Sure, why not?
Look, we're just making it different, right?
Exactly.
Actually, I'm going to put SIY because it looks wrong.
That's even better.
All right. What else do we know? They're incredibly intelligent. What says smart to you?
Um, smart. I mean, oh my god.
What is the word for intelligent in Icelandic?
Oh boy. Klár.
Beauty. Beauty. Can you spell it in English?
I can attempt to. So
Perfect,
it
because
is.
remember, this is fantasy bullshit. So get
Yeah.
it wrong,
So
it's fine.
okay. So it's KL, A with an accent that goes to the right. That's important.
Okay.
And then an R at the end. Klár. But to be fair, in Icelandic we roll our R's extremely like aggressively.
Let's put instead of an a U,
Okay, yeah.
an R. KLUR.
Yes, that would be roughly how you would pronounce it if you would write it in pronunciation. I'm not an expert in pronunciation writing, so
But with the intention of rolling the R.
yeah.
I'm going to put the double R and I'm going to get rid of the double N in sin.
Okay, yeah.
And we need one more thing. What letter do you want the name to start with?
Ooh.
Let me ask you a question, Andre. In
Yes.
your opinion,
Yeah.
what's the most evil letter of the alphabet?
What is the most? Wow, what a question!
What a weird question, but this is the kind of shit we.
This is the type of shit you have to go through, huh? When you're a DM.
All of the other listeners are sitting there going, oh, it's fucking this one, and I know it, and here's why.
Absolutely. I mean, the most evil letter of the alphabet. Wow, what a question. I've said that 5 times probably by now. I'm very drunk at the moment, so just give me a second.
Gotta get closer to your mic too.
Fuck's sake, I keep forgetting the mic stuff. God damn it.
You're all right.
This is gonna be great for the bloopers. What is your opinion on the most evil letter of the alphabet?
Evil letter
Yeah.
of the alphabet.
Yeah. I'm asking my girlfriend. Give me a second. I need a second opinion. Yeah, in Icelandic it's the R because we do it so roughly, but we've already done that. So
No. There's no rules. There are all sorts of dragon names that will have the same letter repeated throughout, right?
Ooh, actually, the V. That's actually very.
V
I
is
like that
actually
as
my
well.
answer as well.
Yeah, that's because just how the way you write it as well. It is sharp, isn't it? Yeah. Well, yeah, like yeah, the evil buildings are all sharp. You know, the sharp edges, the sharp everything. Yeah.
All right. Now let's just finish off. We're starting with the V. What is an evil word or what is a negative word that starts with the letter V?
Volatile.
VOL. There we go. So, now do you have dice?
Of course I do. Just give me a second. I'm gonna run to get them.
Grab a D4 and a D6.
I probably should have had these ready, but I didn't. D4 and a D6. I got them. Right. Oh, I picked the worst set. Honestly, it's gonna be.
It doesn't matter. You'll be fine. A 4 and a 6.
The D6 is a 4.
Oh, hold on. We got to roll the D4 first.
Oh, got the. My girlfriend is gonna get the D4. I have 2 fat fingers to get it out of this fucking. Wow! In a second, it took me 15 seconds to attempt it. Okay, so a 4, and a 4.
All right. So what I'm doing here is I'm rolling to find out the order, right? So,
okay.
So the first syllable is going to be, I've written these down, but I'm going to put them in alphabetical order originally. So that's where I'm starting from. So you rolled a 4 first. So then
Yes.
that's going to be our last one. Then you rolled a 4.
Yep.
But we're rolling it as a D3. So that would actually be the middle one, right? Because there's only 3 options left. Now roll a D4, and we're going to roll it as a D2. So
okay,
one, two, three,
I
four.
could get a D2. I own a D2 somewhere. If you
everybody has a coin to flip, but
yeah,
just roll a D4. What did you get?
I got a 4. Wow, what you fucking looking at?
All right, and then that leaves us with the last one. All right, so Volquisencler.
Sinclair.
Is that evil enough for you?
It feels more silly than evil, if I'm going to be honest with you.
Is it the quiz?
I think it might be. I think it might be the position of the quiz, the Volklisic. Volklisic for.
You know what we don't have is a solid like sound.
Yeah, I agree with you.
to give it
It's
weight.
missing that. Yeah.
What if we go QUN instead of quees? We'd have coon. Vol Koonsinclair.
Von Kloonsinker. I like that better.
It's not there for us though, is it?
No, not quite. It's
If
I
I can
think it
be
might be
honest,
the
I
yeah.
like Volsinclair a lot.
I do as well. I feel like it might be a little silly, but I don't know where that might be coming from. It might be because of like I've grown up with modern cartoon or like more modern stuff where the villain name is more silly than it is serious, and like it went into those directions, like with going that. But that just might just be me, of course.
My so the way that you do this is the traditional way of doing fantasy bullshit names is you end up looking at a word that kind of exists or that people are vaguely aware of, like Voldemort ends with mort, which means death, right? We talked about all the
Yeah,
Star Wars ones,
yeah, absolutely.
right? And so in theory, you can just translate it that way to be to a take on the word malevolence or something, which is maleficent, right? Like
Wow.
there's so many names. Did that just blow your mind?
Yeah, that it did. Yeah, it did.
So there's so many words out there that can do this. I like coming up with just random syllables and slamming them together to see which one fits best in
Yeah,
what order.
I really like the volatile for the green dragon.
Yeah.
I mean, wow,
What about Volkerson? No, that just sounds like a last name.
it does, doesn't it? Well, when you put sun and that sun at the end of it,
Yeah. Volsenker, Volisenker.
ooh, Volisinker. That's I quite like that.
Yeah.
Volisinker.
Is.
Because it starts sharp, goes smooth, and goes extremely sharp again, I feel.
I just typed that all out and it looks absolutely batshit crazy.
I mean, that's what dragons are, right? Batshit crazy.
But this is the kind of workshopping that is worth doing on your big important names that are good. This is the villain of the campaign.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't really hand wave it and say good enough.
Yeah, I mean,
Volisinklur.
Volisinker, the Emerald Plague.
Do you
If
want
we're
to
going
say? Do you want to say it with that hard R roll at the end?
Volisinker. That's the English. Volisinker is what probably be the bastardization of its name. Volisinker would probably be what the dragon would say with maybe kind of a growl at the end.
We have I like that too because that could be like the voice box going full of poison, right?
Volisinker.
Just like he makes the when he says his own name, it's deep in his throat instead of with his tongue,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Obviously, it's much more difficult to us humans to do that.
Sure. We originally said Clur, but do you want to get rid of that L?
I would like to. We'll listen Kerr sounds, or we'll listen Kerr sounds.
Yeah.
The soft R obviously takes away from it, but if you would pronounce it with a harder R, I think it definitely adds to it. It adds that depth, that power to it.
Yeah, and I feel like anybody that says it without rolling the R will make him fucking twitch, right?
Yeah, because dragons are also proud creatures. They are proud of their name. Their name has been given to them or earned.
Take my name out of your mud-filled mouth, you.
Yeah,
Beck.
exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Excellent. Anything else that we should look at before we wrap this up?
No, I don't believe so. It's getting quite late at my time in an hour, and in an hour's time, the news of the year comes along, and I'd like to watch that.
Sure.
And
Okay. Fair enough.
The meat has been ready for about 15 minutes.
I'm gonna let you go then because it has been it's been long, but it's been good. This has been fun, honestly. I do love naming shit. This is great. So
this was absolutely way more fun than I expected it to be. I expected it to be fun, obviously, because you would be here helping me. But I had so much fun just now coming up with a dragon name. It was so much fun.
I hope that the listeners are able to apply these mentalities to their naming conventions. But I want to be clear. My final thought here is none of these rules are rules. They are my own personal guidelines. And after years and years and years of naming stuff, this is the shorthand that I use. And honestly, once you've come up with a handful of syllables, or you've got a bunch of different dwarven names, copying and pasting them into a spreadsheet, you will have it forever. Whatever you don't use,
Exactly.
you'll be able to recycle, right?
Yeah.
And there will be some things that are like, for example, the name Elspeth. Elspeth is going to pop up again because I will call her Lady Berrycloth
Yeah.
every time the players interact with her. When they ask, "What's your first name?" I've got it prepped. If they never
Yeah.
ask, the campaign ends. I still have a name locked and loaded, ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So
That is a very good way to have it.
my DM binder has an entire 20-page section of just names. So
Jesus.
anyway, that's all for our discussion on naming conventions. Thank you, Andri, for choosing this topic, creating this with me, and supporting the Patreon. Are there any shout outs you'd like to do, or are we good to wrap up?
I mean, this time I'd like to shout out my girlfriend who kind of helped me this episode when she got home. I think I remember Elspeth being a character that it's similar to a character she once played, and that's where that came from. That's what that reminded me of. I mean, and my player who had the word Blethlena as a last name, that's from her.
Oh, cool.
Because she is half English, so she knows a lot more about the English language than I do. So she's helped immensely in helping me with these words.
Right on.
And then part Irish and part Welsh. She just said to me, "Whatever, you colonizer."
Look, I'm the same way, although it's mostly Irish. If I go back far enough, then I am just from everywhere in the British Isles. So
absolutely. I mean, that's the only shout out I really want to have is my lovely girlfriend.
Does she have a name?
Isabel.
Well, okay, and that's going to be the last thing that we do right now. We are going to have the Duke's female human wife, Isabel Aldrich.
I love that. That's fantastic. I love that.
I'm going to spell Isabel with a Y, so it looks more fantasy instead of an I at the beginning.
She is smiling like an idiot right now.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to another episode of the It's a Mimic podcast. If you'd like to support us, we have a donate button on our website, www.itsamimic.com, a store with some It's a Mimic merch, and a Patreon. This episode and others can also be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and most other podcast apps. Thanks again for listening to It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're going to get.